Chapter 12:15. Han Fei deliberately waited for half an hour, and in front of more than a dozen half-mermaids, he made a breakthrough. Because it was all a disguise, there wasn't any earth-shattering scene. It looked like he was simply breaking through a realm. However, even so, when the cracking sound came out, several half-mermaids showed an envious look. Yu Hanjiao's breakthrough this time is not small. He should be regarded as a heavenly talent. Someone nodded in agreement. If he wasn't a heavenly talent, he wouldn't have come back from the front line to seek a breakthrough. Han Fei slowly opened his eyes, pretending to feel his strength a little bit. He was pleasantly surprised, but then he suppressed it. The female half-mermaid said, "How is it? A peak-level sea spirit is more than 30% stronger, isn't it?" Han Fei nodded slightly. "I feel more than 40% stronger than before." The eyes of the leading female half-mermaid lit up. When an ordinary person broke through to the peak, it was already a huge leap for them to increase their strength by 30%. But this Yu Hanjiao was actually more than 40% stronger. This strength couldn't be underestimated. If he completely consolidated his strength and made further progress, his strength could be improved by another 20% to 30%. At that time, he would be a real heavenly talent. Immediately, this person said, "My name is Yu Kaling, and I am also the captain of this temporary patrol team. Since you have just come back from the front line and your home is gone, why don't you join my patrol team? When we return to the Ice God Gorge with your strength as a peak-level sea spirit, there will definitely be people who will offer you an olive branch." Han Fei frowned. These people are from the Ice God Gorge? Originally, Han Fei had given up the idea of robbing the Ice God Gorge. But at this moment, Yu Kaling said that she was going back to the Ice God Gorge. If this was the case, wouldn't it be very easy for him to sneak into the Ice God Gorge? It didn't matter whether he could rob them or not. If he couldn't, he could just find an excuse to come out to exchange for resources and slip away. He didn't have to worry about being discovered at all. Han Fei thought for a moment and smiled. Okay. No one had any objection to Han Fei's joining, because Han Fei's strength had been recognized by them, and he stood on the same level as them. Besides, the Iceberg City was equivalent to a post-disaster reconstruction. After all, there were many casualties. At this time, as fellow clansman, he still had some basic sympathy. Han Fei followed the inspection team all the way to Ice Mountain City. Before they even reached Ice Mountain City, all they could see were floating ice and collapsed mountains. The Ice God Gorge had existed for countless years, and this was the first time that this group of mountains had been destroyed. In fact, normal people wouldn't do such a thing. The strong, if they couldn't afford to do anything, would fight the low-level sea monsters. Those who were not strong did not even have the qualifications to enter the Ice Mountain City. Han Fei heard someone cursing in his ear. "Damn Shui Mutian. They must be too arrogant recently. There's so many big and small things." Someone said in a low voice, "I heard that the Shemu heaven has produced a peerless genius who has passed the 4-9 king tribulation, and a new venerable has appeared. Maybe they have really become arrogant." Yu Kaling said, "We don't need to talk about the front line. The Waterwood heaven had prodigies, but so did the royal city. They have to go to the outer seas to break through, but we don't. Therefore, Shui Mutian is merely deceiving himself." Exactly. Passing the 4-9 king tribulations doesn't mean that one can truly grow. Han Fei listened and thought to himself, who are you looking down on? If you have the ability, go ahead. Believe it or not, their brains would be split ask you. Han Fei said lightly, "I know who you are talking about." Han Fei of the human clan is indeed a genius. When I came back from the Ice City Wall, I heard that Han Fei is invincible in the same realm. His reputation in the Shuemu heaven is not small. Yu Kaling immediately turned her head and looked at Han Fei. "Have you seen him?" Someone said, "It's not that incredible. Who is he? How dare he claim to be invincible in the same realm?" Han Fei sighed leisurely. "I haven't seen him, but my brother has." Someone swam up and asked curiously, "What did your brother say?" Han Fei sighed again. "My brother is at the peak level of the sea spirit realm. He said that he met Han Fei once and was killed by him. Yu Kaling, everyone, Yu Kaling took a deep look at Han Fei. My condolences. Someone said, it seems that we can only wait for the real heavenly talent of the royal city to kill him. Han Fei sneered in his heart. I wonder how you will react if you know that I am Han Fei. In the Ice Mountain City, all kinds of caves on the hilltops had basically collapsed. Han Fei saw the huge pit that he had blasted out. And within 3,000 kilometers of the center of the explosion, all kinds of creatures were swimming quickly at this moment. Some were turning over the ice and digging up the remains of some sea demons. Someone drilled into the ground and dug holes crazily, as if searching for something. Someone next to him sighed. I really want to know what kind of power it took to blast out such a big pit. The whole city was turned upside down. Someone said the whole city wasn't turned upside down, but the shock wave smashed half of the city, which is beyond doubt. I heard that the spiritual spring blew up. Yu Kaling said, okay, enough chit-chat. The impact was so great that many places have become ruins. Now there are ownerless things buried everywhere. It's a mess. Let's try to maintain order. Han Fei looked at the crabs that were digging holes, the serpents that were drilling in and out of the ice, and the half-mermaids that were breaking the ice with harpoons. Then he looked at the dozen or so people and finally looked at Yu Kaling in shock. A dozen or so people. Maintain order? The other half-mermaids also looked at Yu Kaling, and someone muttered, how can we maintain order? There's nothing we can do. Ha ha ha. A low-quality divine weapon. Suddenly, they saw that not far away, a big crab crawled out of a pit, waving a harpoon and roaring excitedly. Immediately, Han Fei felt that someone next to him was breathing fast, and he licked his lips. Sister Kaling, shall we also look for it? Yu Kaling immediately glared at the person who spoke, and then looked around. Seeing that Han Fei looked calm, she couldn't help but ask, Yu Hanjiao, what do you think? Han Fei grinned. It's better to disperse than stop them. If they want to rob us, let them. Anyway, these are ownerless things now. No matter who gets them, they will enhance the strength of the Sea Clan. Otherwise, if some strong masters really want these resources, they wouldn't have sent you here to patrol. Who would dare to embezzle it if a Tao-seeking powerhouse came to oversee it? Immediately, someone echoed, that's right, Sister Kaling. When the Ice Mountain City exploded, it seemed that many strong masters came, but no one said that they were going to collect these resources. Yu Kaling hesitated, but Han Fei's explanation seemed to make sense. Besides, when they came, no one told them why they were here. The patrol didn't know anything except that they were here to patrol. Han Fei said solemnly, if my guess is correct, you are actually the pillars of the Sea Clan. The Ice Mountain City is in chaos, and countless people are searching for resources. Why did the higher-ups send you here? I'm afraid it's not as simple as maintaining order, but to give you a chance, which shows that the higher-ups value you. Swish, swish, swish. Everyone immediately looked at Han Fei gratefully. That was too King good. They were just worrying about how to find an excuse. Oh, was there a better excuse than this? More importantly, they felt that what Han Fei said was very reasonable. Someone immediately praised, although I haven't fought with Brother Hanjia, I'm ashamed of your wisdom. Someone chimed in, that's right. Such wisdom is rare even in the Ice God Gorge. The corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched. I don't believe you. If you want to take advantage of me, just say it. Why do you have to find an excuse for me? Yu Kaling pondered for a moment. Well, okay. We can hunt for treasures, but don't cause a riot. If there is a riot, we must stop it. Don't be too far away. We must take care of each other. As soon as Yu Kaling finished talking, everyone rushed out with a whoosh. Only Han Fei was calm and didn't prepare to hunt for treasures. Yu Kaling said in surprise, Yu Hanjia, aren't you going to look for some resources? The peak-level sea spirit needs a lot of resources. Han Fei smiled faintly. The Ice Mountain City is so big that almost all the places that can be sensed have been scanned. The key lies in the caves and arrays that can shield the senses. In such a place, I'll be lucky if I get it, and I'll be doomed if I don't. Yu Kaling glanced at Han Fei with appreciation. Sure enough, no one who can reach the peak-level sea spirit at such a young age is simple. Yukaling nodded. Okay, that makes sense. See you later. As soon as Yukaling left, Han Fei's eyes flickered. Huh, you want me to manage the order? Are you kidding me? How can I have that time? However, since he had come to the Ice Mountain City, he had blown up the city the first time. What should he do the second time? Han Fei scanned with his perception and secretly stretched out the void lines. In the distance, a black crystal sea serpent was drilling a hole. Suddenly, a big pincer clamped over. The hydralisk was shocked and swung its long tail, but it was still half a step too late. Gotcha! The serpent's body was directly clamped in half, but the serpent was not dead. It was immediately furious. Why did you attack me? Many people nearby looked over, but the crab still did what it wanted and swept its pincers again. In the eyes of the strong, the Ice Mountain City is nothing. Instead of searching, it's better to rob. They are all ownerless and can only be obtained with strength. As soon as the big crab finished speaking, a shrimp soldier jumped up and stabbed a starfish to death with his spear. Then he shouted, "Who stole the resources in my cave? Give them back to me." When there was one, there were two, and when there were two, there were three. After two people attacked, another half of the mermaids took action. Lowly lobster, put down my sea-swallowing seashell. A lobster raised its pincers. I discovered first. Are you looking down on us lobsters? Huh, of course. You're not qualified to compete with me. You're asking to be killed. Bam, bam, bam. For a moment, the parties fought fiercely. In an instant, they were all furious. Han Fei, the initiator of the fight, moved through the ruins unhurriedly, occasionally capturing a sea demon, causing some trouble, and occasionally digging out a sea-swallowing seashell from the ruins. Gradually, the Ice Mountain City became lively again. Because of the unknown reasons, there were more and more fights here. Yukaling had just reached a place where two half-mermaids were fighting. I order you to stop. However, one of them seemed to have been scared by Yukaling. Then, he was pierced through by a harpoon and died. The man holding the harpoon widened his eyes. I didn't. It bumped into my muzzle. Yukaling's face was cold. Are you implying that I'm blind? Chapter 12:16. Control was never as easy as sabotage. Yukaling was only a member of the patrol team, so she could only temporarily detain those who she thought were villains. However, there were so many creatures looking for opportunities in the ruins, and conflicts were inevitable. In the beginning, within a radius of hundreds of kilometers, there might only be 2 or 3 conflicts. But at some point in time, this number had doubled. Of course, within 100 kilometers, the number of fights increased from 2 or 3 to 5, but the number was still very small. But don't forget how many sea demons in the Iceberg City were weak. In the beginning, the creatures would still compare whose speed was faster, whose perception was higher, whose opportunities were better, relying on their own strength to dig up opportunities. However, as the number of battles and deaths gradually increased, people's hearts began to waver. If others could fight, why couldn't I? Han Fei wandered aimlessly for 6 hours, walking around the whole place. From time to time, he used the void lines to control 2 or 3 sea demons to fight for treasures, and some even fought fiercely. Of course, all the creatures controlled by Han Fei could not escape the fate of death. In Han Fei's heart, the old turtle said, "It's time to take action. Otherwise, the probability of death is too high. Someone will definitely notice the abnormality." Han Fei pondered for a moment. It's only been 3 hours. Isn't it too fast? Suddenly, more than 200 kilometers away from Han Fei, Yukaling shouted, "Stop! Don't kill each other." Han Fei smiled. What a naive half-mermaid, but you don't know how sinister people are. Han Fei also shouted, "Grab resources, but don't kill each other." While shouting, he pretended to be surprised and said, "Kaling, you're here too?" Yukaling hadn't seen Han Fei for 6 hours and thought he had left alone. It turned out that he was also maintaining order. The funny thing was that those people who came with her had long disappeared. Who knew where they had gone to plunder? Yukaling said, "Great, let's act together later." However, what Yukaling didn't notice was that Han Fei was smiling mysteriously at this moment. Suddenly, in the distant sky, a massive amount of spiritual energy surged and glowed. The density of the spiritual energy attracted the attention of all the living beings in the surroundings. Someone exclaimed, "What a dense spiritual energy," accompanied by the impact of the multicolored light. A new pit must have been dug out. Someone was shocked. Is it the original site of the Trading Valley? Someone took a deep breath. It's indeed in the direction of the Trading Valley. For a moment, countless people gasped. Wasn't the Trading Valley blown into ruins long ago? Moreover, countless people had already sensed that there was nothing there. Where did this terrifying spiritual energy come from? At this moment, Hanfei sensed a divine sense scanning this place, and the old turtle reminded him, "Venerable, venerable." Hanfei was well aware of this. At this moment, he looked in the direction of the Trading Valley in shock and shouted, "Kai Ling, let's go. It's going to be chaotic over there." Yu Kailing gritted her teeth and looked at the brawler who had run away. She felt her scalp go numb and thought to herself, "Why are there so many things?" Yu Venerable said, "Let's go. Hurry up." The Venerable scanned and found some broken arrays in the depths of the ruins of the Trading Valley. And in the array, there was a broken sun-moon shell. In the distant void, a seahorse shook its head slightly. That person had just escaped. There was no reason for him to go to the ruins to cause trouble. As for the sun-moon shell, let them grab it. As soon as Han Fei and Yu Kailing arrived at the ruins of the Trading Valley, they found that it was already surrounded by thousands of creatures. There were crabs, lobsters, flood snakes, half-mermaids, sharks, luminous jellyfish, void-breaking conches. Han Fei thought to himself, in this case, the more chaotic it is, the better. He might even be able to retrieve the resources that he had thrown out. After all, no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. Normally speaking, whether it was a sea-swallowing seashell or a sun-moon shell, they were not only shells but also represented a space. Although space could also be broken, it was much more difficult to break than ordinary spaces. This sun-moon shell was just an accident, thinking that it was a resource left by the Trading Valley. But at this moment, the arrays were half hidden, and these treasure hunters didn't see the whole picture. They drilled into the holes one by one and drilled into the depths of the ruins. Suddenly, a half-mermaid grabbed a long spear and was about to stuff it into his sea-swallowing seashell when he heard the shrimp soldier yell, "Let go, or I'll stab you to death." The half-mermaid growled, "Opportunities and treasures belong to the fated." Bam! The ice was directly blasted, and an overlord catfish was blasted away, its scales shattered. Seeing that it didn't get the sun-moon shell, the overlord catfish immediately roared. "There's a sun-moon shell stuffed with resources, and the treasures are scattered. Grab it." Wow, a sun-moon shell stuffed with resources? Many people were refreshed. The space of a sun-moon shell could reach at least a kilometer. The amount of resources that could be stored inside was much greater. Just the spiritual spring water that was leaking out had already caused a commotion in all directions. Who knew what other treasures were inside? Han Fei was sure that no one would pay attention to it. So, among the thousands of sea creatures, he randomly found a half-mermaid and stabbed it with the void lines. The half-mermaid was refreshed and roared, "Who dares to take it all? Everyone, kill him." The half-mermaid controlled by Han Fei rushed into the ruins, and its harpoon pierced the ice with full power. A jellyfish burst out an electric current and roared, "Get lost." A purple sand eel was stabbed with a spear and roared, "You're courting death." Bam! 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 It felt like this place was in a mess. Han Fei and Yu Kailing were thinking about how to deal with it. Yu Kailing was having a headache. They were all troublemakers. How could she deal with them? Bam! Suddenly, the half-mermaid controlled by Han Fei was pierced through by a shrimp soldier. In the shrimp soldier's speechless and horrified gaze, with a bang, the half-mermaid blew itself up. This explosion seemed to have destroyed some of the remaining formations in the ruins. Suddenly, the spiritual energy was abundant. A superior grade, divine weapon flew out from the explosion. "Oh my God, it's a high-quality divine weapon. Catch it." Yu Kailing shouted, "Don't panic. Don't kill it. When Yukaling felt that no one was in a good mood, she saw Han Fei take a step forward, condense a big hand in the air, and slap a flood snake away. Then, the water rippled, and a water snake coiled up the high-quality divine weapon and rushed towards Han Fei. A black giant shark, spewing out strong winds and condensing a big horn on its head, rushed directly at Han Fei. An ice kiss flicked its tail and froze the space within 100 meters around Han Fei. An old turtle shouted, "Let go of the divine weapon." Yukaling was shocked. "You Hanjia, don't fight now." However, Han Fei roared in a low voice, "All of you stop. Divine weapons belong to those who are virtuous. Look at you. What are you doing?" Cold wind harpoons smashed the tail of the icy kiss with a casual slap. Letting the black giant shark attack, Han Fei pointed his harpoon at the huge turtle shell. Many people were taken aback by the scene. Yukaling was also slightly surprised. The giant shark and the old turtle were not weak, and both had the strength of a peak-level law enforcer. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come to snatch this high-quality divine weapon. However, they couldn't even shake Han Fei. In an instant, demonic energy surged from Han Fei's body, and his eyes were cold as he launched the Sea God Strike. Bam! Crack! 2 cracks appeared on the old turtle's turtle shell. Han Fei grabbed the high-quality divine spear with one hand and shouted coldly, "A bunch of good-for-nothings. It's just a sun-moon shell. You've reached the peak of the sea spirit realm. Don't you think it's better for you to share it?" As he spoke, Han Fei changed the topic. "Since you're fighting for this sun-moon shell, why don't I help you take it?" Suddenly, a long tentacle came from the void, and a big octopus smashed through the ruins. "Don't listen to him. You just want it. If you have the ability, come down and fight me." Han Fei shouted. "Do you think I dare not?" Swish! Yukaling quickly appeared beside Han Fei. "Stop, all of you. I'm Yukaling, the external attendant of the Ice God Gorge and the inspector of the Ice Mountain City. All of you stop." Han Fei really wanted to roll his eyes at her. If you were a Tao-seeking realm demon, someone would definitely listen to you. However, you're also a peak-level sea spirit now. No matter what your identity is, no one will believe you if you don't show it completely. Sure enough, Han Fei shouted, "It's ownerless. Inspector, why do you intervene?" Han Fei's eyes were cunning. There was still a lot of spiritual spring in the sun-moon shell. As long as they fought for it, it would all explode. At that time, the spiritual spring would gush out, the divine weapons would float in the air, and the scene would be chaotic. As an explorer, Han Fei really didn't care about these resources at all. Otherwise, 5 million caddies of spiritual spring wouldn't have exploded so easily. However, just when Han Fei was looking forward to the outbreak of a chaotic battle, the void was suddenly torn apart, and a Tao-seeking realm demon walked out of the void. He first glanced at Yukaling and the others, then at Han Fei, and finally at the sea demons who were fighting for the spiritual spring. Han Fei was a little surprised. This Tao-seeking realm demon was a bit strange. He looked like a human. If it weren't for the webbed hands and gills on his neck, Han Fei would definitely think that he was a human. Otherwise, he would be a venerable if he looked like a human. This person grabbed the sun-moon shell with a big hand, crossed dozens of barriers, and directly grasped it. At this moment, countless people were shocked to find that a Tao-seeking realm demon was here. Yukaling hurriedly cupped her hands. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Wendao." The man looked indifferent. "A bunch of good-for-nothings. Why are you fighting for such a small profit?" With that said, the man looked at Yukaling. "And you are the strongest here. You're hesitant and lack means. Go back to the Ice God Gorge first." The man glanced around and finally fixed his eyes on Han Fei. "You're not bad. Why haven't I seen you before?" Han Fei hurriedly cupped his hands. "Mr. Wendao, I have just advanced to the peak-level sea spirit." The man grunted. "You have some strength. Come back to the Ice God Gorge with me." Immediately, this man's voice shook and spread for thousands of kilometers. The top heavenly talent of the royal city wants to select followers. There were 3 personal attendants and 8 ordinary attendants. The quota is limited. All peak-level sea spirits have a chance. If you want to come to the Ice God Gorge Arena quickly. Apex. Chapter 12:17. What Han Fei was upset about was that his plan was ruined by a Tao-seeking realm demon when it was about to stir up a storm. At this moment, Yu Kaling, who had no choice but to take Han Fei and the others to the Ice God Gorge. Han Fei felt it was a pity that he had lost a Sun Moon shell for no reason. It was taken away by the old man just now. Although he used the Sun Moon shell as bait, because this was his own trap, he had plenty of opportunities to snatch the resources back. At the very least, he could control others to snatch the resources back. Not only would he not lose his resources, but he might also cause a war. But now it was all ruined. Before Han Fei asked, someone asked, Sister Kaling, why did Mr. Wendao show up in person? Is the person from the King City very important? Someone echoed, yes. Isn't Mr. Wendao already at the peak of Dao seeking? Why does he need to show up for such a trivial matter? Someone said, that depends on who comes from the King City. Hasn't Mr. Wendao always wanted to go to the King City? Maybe this is an opportunity. Yu Kaling shouted in a low voice, okay, don't ask too much about Mr. Wendao. But this time, you can compete for him. If you really follow him, you may have a chance to go to the King City. Someone said in surprise, Sister Kaling, didn't you come from the King City? Maybe you know the person who comes. Yu Kaling shook her head slightly. When I was in the King City, I was also humble and I had no time to meet the real heavenly talents. Han Fei couldn't help but interject. What is the King City like? There was absolutely nothing wrong with this question. Han Fei really wanted to know. Not surprisingly, the rest of them should also want to know. Yu Kaling shook her head slightly. In fact, you all have a beautiful imagination about the King City. In fact, it is not as beautiful as you think. I can only say, if you have a chance to go there in the future, don't compete. Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. Don't compete? Does this mean that the competition in the Sea Demon King City is very fierce? Well, come to think of it, the royal city was the dreamland of the sea demons. There were countless sea demons who wanted to go there, and they would definitely fight to the death for it. Han Fei wondered what he could do if he had a chance to go to the Sea Demon King City. He couldn't figure it out. In any case, if he had a choice, if he could steal one, he would definitely do it. However, it was impossible for him to live there. He would rather not go there than live there. He still had to return to Inyang Heaven to fight. He had no time to waste in the Sea Race Royal City in Shuemu Heaven. The Ice God Gorge was a pair of underwater abyssal canyons completely condensed by 10,000-year-old ice. When they arrived at the Ice God Gorge, they felt that the surrounding temperature could freeze not their bodies but their souls. When Han Fei discovered this, he heard Yu Kaling say, be careful when you come to the Ice God Gorge for the first time. Don't be careless. The freezing power here can freeze your soul. Someone added, in the past, the Ice God Gorge was open to sea demons, but people often suffered from frostbite, so creatures below the sea spirit realm were no longer allowed to enter. Han Fei secretly took a breath and couldn't help but say, in this case, isn't the permanent population of the Ice God Gorge very small? Yu Kaling said, not only us, but also a small number of azure sea blue demons and other sea creatures who have not chosen to transform. Han Fei couldn't help but frown. Yes, on this trip to the Shuemu Heaven, he met a large number of sea creatures who had not yet transformed. They could also talk, provoke, and fight. Different from the Inyang Heaven, the sea creatures there were either inferior manfish, red demons, or half-mermaids. It seemed that in terms of racial classification, the level of the sea creatures in the Shuemu Heaven was much higher than that in the Inyang Heaven. Yu Kaling said, but there are not many sea creatures here, about 2,000 or so, and the rest don't stay in the Ice God Gorge. Just like you, maybe you didn't choose the Ice God Gorge, but chose to travel outside. Many sea demons choose this way, thinking that it is more free outside. Pooh! Han Fei didn't know whether they were free or not, but he almost cursed out loud. Damn it, there were 2,000 sea spirits in the realm of ice and the Ice God Gorge. If they had a passage to the Inyang sky, wouldn't they be invincible? Suddenly, in his mind, the old turtle's voice said, I feel that there seems to be a secret here. There seems to be something unusual in the deepest part of the ice gorge below. Han Fei asked, "What's secret?" The old turtle said, "I can only vaguely feel it. If I want to spy on it, I'm not strong enough with my current strength." Han Fei couldn't help but look down at the huge abyss below. Secret? If there was a chance, wouldn't it have been taken away by a strong master? Why would it still stay here? They flew all the way, and under the leadership of Ukaling, they swam directly to the abyssal chasm of the Ice God Gorge. It was dark all around. When Han Fei swam past, a large area of blue algae suddenly lit up on the ice cliff, and then, like a galaxy spreading all over the sky, the endless blue algae flickered. Han Fei couldn't help but be amazed. In terms of the magnificence of nature and the novelty of life forms, the scenery in the ocean was the best. After diving all the way for more than 20,000 meters, Ukaling took Han Fei to the cliff wall. After this collision, the scene in front of them changed, and colorful light shone. This valley seemed to have been completely hollowed out, and a strange, oval-shaped beehive-like building stood in front of them. Because there were too many glowing algae and crystal stones here, the light was like shallow water, and they could see things clearly. The brightness even surpassed that of moonlight. After the tower, there was not much visible space. Except for the caves drilled out of the ice rampart, several ice palaces were printed on the ice. Han Fei only took a glance and knew that there was an illusion formation. As long as they walked in, they should be able to enter the ice and go to the so-called palace. On the ground more than 300 kilometers away, there was an upright fishbone on the ground. It seemed to be a hole, and people could occasionally be seen drilling into it. And the direction that Ukaling took Han Fei and the others to was also that place. Ukaling said, "This is the arena of the Ice God Gorge. It is usually a place where the strong of the Ice God Gorge practice combat skills and fight with each other. Occasionally, they will announce important events here." Someone said nervously, "I've already heard the roars in the arena. Has the selection already begun?" Someone sped up. "I heard that the heavenly talents of the King's City are very powerful. I want to see how powerful they are." Just after they arrived at the entrance, someone suddenly perceived, and someone in the air asked, "Who is this person? I've never seen him before." Ukaling said, "Master Chi, this person is called Yuhanjia. Today, we happened to meet him, and he broke through to the peak level of Sea Spirit. Later, Mr. Wendao appreciated him and made an exception to let him come here." Mr. Wendao seemed to be in this arena. At this moment, he said to Han Fei via voice transmission, "Don't stop the peak-level sea spirits who come here today. There is still a group behind." "Yes, Mr. Wendao." Han Fei thought to himself, "Fortunately, I've completely become a sea demon. Otherwise, I would be a little panicked if I came to their lair." When they entered the underground cave house and passed through a layer of seals, they suddenly heard waves of dong, dong, dong. In their field of vision, almost all the people of the Ice God Gorge were here. On the periphery of the arena, there were ice platforms protruding from the cliff. Everywhere else seemed to be arenas. At the bottom of the valley, it was like a hot spring valley, with smoke curling up. In the smoke, a half-mermaid who looked very similar to a human stood proudly, holding a red spear in his hand. Beside him, there were 7 people besieging him. His spear light pierced through the void, and the speed of his attack was so fast that ordinary peak-level sea spirits couldn't defend against it at all. Beside Han Fei, someone exclaimed, "So fast." Ukaling gritted her teeth and said, "He has comprehended the close-distance technique." When Ukaling spoke, the half-mermaid suddenly raised his head, looked at them, and smiled. The half-mermaid said, "You're quite knowledgeable. You even know the closed-distance technique. Just based on this knowledge, all of you can come at me together." Everyone was stunned, including Han Fei. They had just arrived and they were going to fight? Someone else asked, "Sister Kai Ling, do you know him?" Ukaling shook her head slightly. "I'm not qualified. Remember, in front of the closed-distance technique, space is never distance." There were 17 people in total, and the half-mermaid below laughed aloud. "Oh, it turns out to be a guy who didn't pass the trial in the royal city. But since he can go to the royal city to take the trial, he's quite capable. Okay, come at me together. Han Fei really wanted to go up and slap him. I've already killed several heavenly talents in the royal city. Why are you pretending to be a big shot here? Suddenly, a voice sounded in the minds of Han Fei and the others. It seemed to be the voice of Mr. Wendao. The voice said, "You must go all out and don't dare to be careless." This guy is called the Fish Dragon King. It is said that he has the bloodline of the ancient Dragon King and is currently ranked 10th on the heavenly talent list of the Baibei Royal City. Because he was challenged, he had to come out to the front line to prove his strength. If you can follow him, it will be good for you. Han Fei was slightly taken aback. Who was the enemy he encountered during his tribulation? He seemed to be ranked 89th on the heavenly talent list. But this guy happened to be ranked 10th, so there should be a certain gap in strength. Judging from the strength of this peak-level sea spirit, he directly challenged Yu Kailing and the other 17 people. This was enough to show his pride. However, Han Fei was still a little disdainful. Just because he has the bloodline of the ancient Dragon King, he gave himself the name Fish Dragon King. As the saying went, the tacit understanding between men transcended races. According to Han Fei's understanding, this name must be to show off. Otherwise, the value of this name would be meaningless. The Fish Dragon King shouted, "Hurry up! I'm in a hurry. I don't have time to waste here. Come to me together." Yu Kailing whispered, "Go all out, go." At Yu Kailing's order, the 17 people immediately dispersed, and many companion spirits flew in the air. Some people flashed out, and spear light jumped like starlight. The Fish Dragon King smiled disdainfully, touched the spearhead with his foot, and the body of the spear trembled slightly, directly blocking the opponent's ultimate move. In the sky full of attacks, the Fish Dragon King shouted, too slow, and not strong enough." Bam! 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 The spear pierced the void, and many people didn't even know where the spear shadow appeared. They were clearly a kilometer away, but it was as if they were 3 feet in front of the spear. They couldn't even block a single blow. Including Han Fei, he also encountered the spear shadow. However, Han Fei tapped his feet, made a strange footwork, slightly twisted his body, and easily dodged. 64-dimensional fish dragon dance. Han Fei hadn't used it for a long time. This was a divine skill for field combat, most suitable for group battles. When Han Fei easily dodged the Fish Dragon King's attack, at least 7 or 8 people were surprised, including the Fish Dragon King himself. Han Fei immediately realized that he was too careless. How could he deal with the 10th on the heavenly talent list so casually? Therefore, as soon as Han Fei stepped out and dodged the rod, with a crack, Han Fei suddenly covered his waist. What a fast spear technique. My waist is twisted. Chapter 12:18. No matter what Han Fei said, everyone could see that he had miraculously dodged the Ichthyosaur King's attack. The Ichthyosaur King grinned and stabbed its spear at Han Fei at the speed of lightning. Han Fei was in a dilemma, wondering how he could perform such a difficult battle technique. Looking at the spear that was as fast as lightning, Han Fei's expression turned serious. He clenched his teeth and said, "Forget it, I'm a sky pride. What's wrong with learning some special battle techniques?" Han Fei leaped up, and the harpoon in his hand shot out in a spiral. Clang! The harpoon in Han Fei's hand was sent flying, and Han Fei took advantage of the moment when the weapons clashed and flew away. In midair, Han Fei waved his hand, and the harpoon returned to him, which piqued the interest of many people. Someone chuckled. This kid's reflexes are fast, and his movement technique is quite clever too. He's good at using the displacement technique. The Ichthyosaur King did not hit Han Fei after 2 consecutive attacks. Instead of being surprised, it was happy and said, "Not bad. Looks like there are a few good ones in the outer ocean." 6 Mountains Crumbling Dragon. The Ichthyosaur King swung its spear, and a reddish-brown dragon shadow leaped out. Han Fei was slightly surprised when he saw the dragon shadow. It looked very similar to a real dragon. Could this Ichthyosaur King really be of the ancient Dragon King's bloodline? The dragon soared across the 4 seas with a dazzling red light. Its claws slammed down, but was actually a spear shadow that broke through the void. That slap struck out, and the three of them were slapped. Then it swung its tail and left a white mark in the void. Bang, 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 in the blink of an eye, only 5 people were left out of the 17. This alone was enough to show how powerful the Ichthyosaur King was. Han Fei secretly analyzed. In terms of speed, the Ichthyosaur King was comparable to him in the past. In terms of strength, although it was not as strong as Yang Nanshi, it was still much stronger than Shu Quangren. When strength and speed were sufficient, the quality of battle techniques and talents of spiritual beasts could only play a supporting role. At this moment, one of them was enforcing the ice power, while the other was enforcing the water cage. The two of them worked together and sealed the space at the same time. One of them shouted, "Sister Kailing, Yu Chung Yuhanjia attack." Yu Kailing held the spear in her hand and let out a delicate cry. The image of a manatee appeared and whipped the spear with its tail. The spear was like a nail that pierced directly into the water cage. The half-mermaid, named Yu Cheng's body expanded, and black thorns protruded from the surface of his body, turning into long thorns that flickered and pierced into the water too. As for Han Fei, he simply launched a Sea King strike that was not very distinctive. The Fish Dragon King sneered. It's just a small trick. Deacon, this kind of useless law enforcement is really too weak." Roar! Bang! The water prison suddenly exploded, and hundreds of illusory dragon heads rushed out. Bang, bang, bang. Wherever the dragon's head collided, all the attacks were shattered. Even Yu Kailing spat out mouthfuls of blood. But he didn't want to vomit blood. How could he spit out his resplendent golden essence blood just like that? Han Fei stepped on the water in midair, his figure drifting and turning into a series of afterimages, as if he was avoiding the twisting dragon heads. However, with this buffer, Han Fei had enough time to get some fake blood and put it in his mouth. At this moment, except for Yu Kailing and Han Fei, the other 3 were vomiting blood crazily and were no longer able to fight. And among them, Han Fei was the one who looked as if nothing had happened. Swish! In the turbid ice, a spear light pierced through, accompanied by the figure of the Fish Dragon King. "You can block my attacks 3 times. You must not be weak. Take my dragon-fixing spear." Han Fei rolled his eyes, but he tried to twist his body, and the 64-dimensional fish dragon dance couldn't handle it at all. Clank, clank, clank. Han Fei's figure swayed from side to side, and he could only resist with his harpoon. In the eyes of others, even his magical footwork couldn't help him get out of this awkward situation. Someone shook his head slightly. Although this Yuhanjia is not weak, he is still no match for the heavenly talents of the royal city. He is much weaker in both speed and strength. Someone chuckled. It's a pity that this Yuhanjia has just advanced to the peak-level sea spirit realm. Otherwise, he would be much better than you. Someone wondered, why didn't we find such a talent before? Someone laughed. I'm afraid he deliberately hid his strength. Now that he has a chance to go to the royal city, he suddenly revealed his strength. The Dao-seeking state monsters were talking about it, and Mr. Wendao, who looked like a human being, was a little puzzled. This kid's footwork is extremely weird. It seems to be more like a human's footwork, which requires a high mastery of the human body. Is this Yuhanjia particularly suitable for a human body? Of course, because of the strong demonic energy on Han Fei, no one would suspect his true identity. In the field, Yu Kailing launched 7 spears in a row, which looked like 7 streams of light. However, the Fish Dragon King glanced back, swept its spear, and tried to blow Han Fei away with the tip of the spear. However, when the Fish Dragon King swept the army, Han Fei took advantage of this opportunity to slash with his harpoon, which was as fast as lightning, leaving a streak of fire on the Fish Dragon King's back. Boom! The dragon-head phantom bombarded Han Fei and sent him flying. The latter pretended to roll dozens of times on the ground, and then struggled to prop up his body with the harpoon. The next moment, a beam of red light directly pierced through Yu Kailing. The Fish Dragon King said lightly, "You two are not bad, but your strength is a little weak and your speed is not fast enough." While speaking, the Fish Dragon King glanced at Han Fei. Your speed is not bad, but your strength is not enough. The two of you will follow me for a period of time in the future. Han Fei stood up with a swish and hurriedly cupped his hands. Yes, my lord. Yu Kaling had a complicated look on her face. Sure enough, she was no match for the real strong. She could only bow at this moment. Yes, my lord. Because the battle was still going on, Yu Kaling and Han Fei were asked to wait on the side. When the two of them fought side by side, Han Fei exclaimed, "The heavenly talents of the royal city are really strong." Yu Kaling took a deep look at Han Fei. How did you manage to avoid every attack at such a terrifying speed? She said leisurely to Han Fei, I have mastered a law enforcement ability called Sea Demon's Sixth Sense. Huh? Yu Kaling asked, what does it feel like to be in the top 5? Han Fei replied, sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Cough, cough. While Yu Kaling was dumbfounded, many people looked at Han Fei. You make it sound so high and mighty, but this is what you mean? However, Han Fei paused and said, Sixth Sense, commonly known as premonition. On a high platform, Yu Wendao chuckled and thought to himself, interesting little guy. The Fish Dragon King stood for a few more battles, and almost no one could rival it. The only guy that was favored was a female half-mermaid, who was chosen because she was beautiful. The Fish Dragon King laughed loudly. All right, it's just the 3 of you. As for the others, well, those who can withstand 2 strikes from me just now, come and fight me. Han Fei watched the whole process with a smile, without saying anything. This Fish Dragon King gave him the feeling that it was a heavenly talent from a big family in the Thousand-Star City. The tone, the arrogance, and the condescending attitude were so similar. Han Fei couldn't help but wonder what kind of place the Sea Race Royal City was. Why was such a heavenly talent of the sea race born here? Logically speaking, this Fish Dragon King was not weak. Its real strength should be comparable to Yang Nanshi's, and its speed was faster than Yang Nanshi's, so it should be in the top 5 of the heavenly talent list of the Thousand-Star City. However, in Han Fei's eyes, it was very weak. After all, this Fish Dragon King was just a peak-level sea spirit. If Han Fei really wanted to, he could kill it with a finger. It wouldn't even have a place to run. Yu Wendao said indifferently, since you've been selected, I'll tell you the truth. This time, your mission is to follow the Dragon King into the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, compete with the Shuemu Heaven and the Blood Sea Divine Wood City, and explore the secrets of this place. The Fish Dragon King said arrogantly, the reason why I'm taking you is just to make some people feel at ease. In fact, I alone am enough to enter the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. You just need to not hold me back. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. At this moment, a turtle man in turtle shell said in a low voice, Young Master Dragon King, this trip is very dangerous. Be careful. After all, many heavenly talents have died in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. The Fish Dragon King smiled disdainfully. Am I that useless? I heard that in this trip to the Ancient Realm, the Baibei Royal City, the Shuemu Heaven, and the Blood Sea Divine Wood City will all send their top powerhouses. Yu Wendao suddenly said, that's not necessarily true. The cause of this incident was Han Fei's tribulation and Yu Chen's Dao. Now that the two of them have successfully passed it, why would the Baibei Royal City give up? A long battle is clearly not in the Shuemu Heaven's favor. That's why they can't settle things in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. The Fish Dragon King frowned. I don't understand. There are so many living beings in the Shuemu Heaven. Why can't the 2 royal cities work together to destroy them? Yu Wendao shook his head slightly. Of course not. First, although the Baibei Royal City and the Blood Sea Divine Wood City are both sea tribes, we're not on the same path. Moreover, the Shuemu Heaven has accumulated many powerhouses for tens of thousands of years. If we really go all out, the Baibei Royal City and the Blood Sea Divine Wood City will suffer heavy losses. In the end, this is a battle between powerhouses. We've been draining the Shuemu Heaven's strength to prevent them from continuously producing powerhouses. The Tortoise Man echoed, Young Master, if the other party didn't have a strange creature like the Insect Queen, the Waterwood Sky wouldn't be so difficult to deal with. Therefore, you can't underestimate the insect race in the Waterwood sky. The fish dragon king snorted softly. It's fine. This trip will be a good opportunity to see what the experts of Shuemu Sky and Bloodseed Divine would have become. Remember the last time I came to the front line, I was still in the Sea Demon realm. By the way, will Han Fei enter the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm? Yu and Dao pondered for a moment before replying. The probability is extremely high. This person had just gone through the 4-9 Monarch's tribulation. Whether or not his strength had stabilized was not a question. At a time like this, it was natural for him to cultivate to the peak of the Dao-seeking realm. It's too risky to enter the Thousand Mountains Ancient Realm. Normal people wouldn't choose that. The Ichthyosaur king licked its lips. What a pity. I heard that Yu, that trash, was killed by a single finger, causing our Baibei royal city to lose all face. If only that Han Fei was here, I would definitely chop off his head. The tortoise said, Young master, don't be conceited. Many people are waiting to see you on this trip. The fish dragon king smirked. Oof. Then let them have a good look. These chatter were like secrets in the ears of Han Fei and the others. The onlookers were shocked. They were shocked by the so-called Thousand Mountains Ancient Realm. Han Fei frowned. Is this Ichthyosaur king arrogant? Tisk, I'll kill him first after I sneak into the Thousand Mountains Ancient Realm. Soon, the crowd in the arena dispersed. Only the Ichthyosaur king, Han Fei, Yu Kaling, and a beautiful half-mermaid were left. There were a total of 8 people, all peak-level sea spirits. They were here to protect the Ichthyosaur king. Of course, it was an exaggeration to say that they were here to protect the Ichthyosaur king. With the Ichthyosaur king's strength, except for Han Fei, none of the people here could defeat him. It was more like this guy had found a bunch of thugs for himself. In the eyes of some people, it was natural that they didn't have to do everything themselves. Han Fei thought to himself. The old tortoise suddenly said, Boy, I have something to discuss with you. Han Fei was confused. What is it? The old tortoise said, Although this little tortoise is weak and only has the strength of a demigod, it shares the same origin as me after all. I can find a chance to kill it. Then I can separate a wisp of my soul and occupy its body. Han Fei, Apex. Chapter 12:19. The Fish Dragon King was here to gain experience, or to gain experience. It looked at Han Fei and the others with an arrogant expression. He said, I don't care what you were planning to do or what path you took. But if you follow me today, you must be prepared to die at any time. The path I walk is always on the edge of danger. But as long as you don't die, your strength will definitely grow. When I conquer the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, I will bring you back to the royal city. It will be your honor. Hiss. The others didn't hear it, but the promise to bring them back to the royal city made everyone excited. Han Fei was no exception. He pretended to be energetic, and his eyes glowed. Yu Kaling seemed to be determined. Han Fei knew that she had been to the royal city before, but the process must not have been very smooth. This time, the Fish Dragon King seemed to have ignited a new fighting spirit in her. I pledge my life to follow you, Master. Master, why should we be afraid of death? The beautiful half-mermaid leaned against the Fish Dragon King and said coquettishly, Master Dragon King, I believe that when you return to the royal city, they will definitely look at you in a new light. Ha ha ha. You know me. Han Fei looked at the Fish Dragon King and unconsciously put his hand on the girl's shoulder. He thought, how old is this girl? She's still trying to seduce me? Yu Kaling was not as carefree as the girl. After seeing this, she looked away and pretended not to see it. The Fish Dragon King smiled. In that case, Mr. Wendao, when do we set off? The fish asked. Tomorrow morning. Prepare some spiritual fruits and resources. The Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm lacks spiritual energy and energy. The Fish Dragon King smiled at the beautiful half-mermaid. Looks like we have to wait for another day. Forget it. Let's go. What's your name? Lan Shui. Master, my name is Lan Shui. The Fish Dragon King nodded slightly. Follow me. I think you're quite strong. I didn't understand something just now. Let's go to your cave abode. The others pretended not to hear it. Han Fei couldn't help but scratch his head. F*CK. How arrogant is this? This is outrageous. Proclaiming that in the day, Han Fei couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Why is her surname not you?" He said this telepathically, but Han Fei deliberately made it so that everyone could hear him. The beautiful half-mermaid's body stiffened slightly, and she cursed Han Fei many times in her heart. The others looked at Han Fei speechlessly. After the Fish Dragon King and Lan Shuer left, someone secretly gave Han Fei a thumbs up and said, "Bro, you're really tough to say that to his face." Han Fei looked confused. "No, I'm just curious." Han Fei was just curious. After all, he had never seen a half-mermaid surnamed Lan before. In terms of surnames, there wasn't much difference between the Shuemu heaven and the Yin-Yang heaven. Most of them had the surname Yu as their surname. At that time, a half-mermaid patted Han Fei's shoulder silently. How uncreative! Since the Fish Dragon King had taken a liking to it, it had to be given an elegant name like a human. Only then will it have its own uniqueness. The corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched. So, he was just deceiving himself? What made Han Fei even more speechless was that this name could be changed at will. Yu Kaling said, "In the sea race, no one remembers the weak. When you become strong, whether you have a name or not, someone will remember you." Han Fei was full of disdain. So what if he didn't cultivate his strength? But he was good at picking up girls, just like Zhang Xuanyu. Oh no, Zhang Xuanyu still had some integrity, but this Fish Dragon King didn't. Yu Kaling glanced at Han Fei and said, "Come back tomorrow. Since you have come to the Ice God Gorge, you can open a cave residence in the Ice God Gorge, preferably on the periphery." Han Fei frowned. "Is it the abyssal chasm outside?" Someone sneered. "It doesn't matter if you want to live there. However, is it uncomfortable to live in the ice cave we are in now?" Yu Kaling said, "The abyssal chasm outside is a place for training, not a place to live. You can try it. The deeper you go, the stronger the power that can freeze the soul there is. If the Venerables don't tell us, none of us will know what is down there." 2 hours later, in this huge chasm of the Glacier Canyon, Han Fei had dived 10,000 meters and had been frozen into an ice block. Mainly because Han Fei knew that someone was observing him. He didn't dare to continue diving deeper, otherwise his aptitude would be too abnormal. In his mind, Han Fei said, "How about it? Can you feel what it is now? This power is really terrifying. It can even freeze the soul." The old turtle pondered and said, "I can't feel it. Although my soul is damaged now, it shouldn't be blocked by an ordinary secret place. This shows that the threat here has reached above the venerable realm. Don't think about it now." Han Fei curled his lips. "Humph, the venerable realm? I would have gone home at that time." The old turtle said, "It's not that you can't come back in the future." Han Fei thought about it. Forget it. Anyway, he was in someone else's territory. Even if there was really something good here, it shouldn't fall into his hands. However, just when Han Fei was about to leave, his eyebrows suddenly trembled. He felt that little black and little white want to come out. Han Fei's expression didn't change. As he went back, he wondered, why did little black and little white react? Of course, Han Fei couldn't directly call little black and little white out here. After all, this was not his territory. Sure enough, when Han Fei just returned to the abyss, he saw Yu Wendao looking at him quietly. When Han Fei went into the abyssal chasm, he had already known that someone was watching him. But what was wrong with satisfying his curiosity? If it weren't for someone watching him, he wouldn't have only dived 10,000 meters. Han Fei hurriedly cupped his hands. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Wendao." Yu Wendao stepped to Han Fei's side, then looked down at the extremely dark chasm and said, "How do you feel down there?" Han Fei looked a little reserved and replied stiffly, "Cold." Yu Wendao smiled slightly. "Young man, you have hidden a lot of strength, haven't you?" Han Fei was slightly surprised. Was he seen through so easily? Why, the humanoid old man who looked like an old pedant smiled faintly. It's not difficult to guess. Mortals all have pride. Some show it on their faces, and some hide it in their hearts. However, sometimes these things can't be hidden. Occasionally, a little inadvertent movement will often expose them. Of course, this also depends on others noticing you. Han Fei didn't speak. He didn't know what this man was thinking. Why would a peak-level, Dao-seeking realm expert chat with him? Yuan Dao asked, "What do you think of the Fish Dragon King's strength?" Seeing that his trick was seen through, Han Fei relaxed a little and replied seriously, "Very strong." Yuan Dao smiled faintly. "How long can you last in his hands?" Han Fei was just about to speak when the old turtle in his body said, "Tell me more." Han Fei thought of something and also smiled faintly. "Mr. Wen Dao, are you so sure of my strength?" Yuan Dao said calmly, "Others may not be sure, but I have a good eye for people. Since I asked you, I have already considered your strength." Han Fei gasped. "If the Fish Dragon King is only in the realm he showed today, I can last for 100 minutes without being defeated." 100 minutes was a very vague concept. For two people with similar strength, let alone 100 minutes, it was possible for them to fight for a day and a night. However, a figure like the Fish Dragon King did have the right to be arrogant. Its strength was indeed not weak, and its speed was indeed fast. If this was the standard, 99% of the Sea Clan's experts in the same realm as him would be defeated. Yuan Dao's eyes flashed, and he said, "That's good. Yu Hanjia, it's a pity that you have been hiding for too long and only came to my attention now. Otherwise, your life would have been changed." Han Fei was surprised. "Why does this sound so much like a bluff?" Yuan Dao continued, "My name only appears in the Ice God Gorge. You probably haven't heard of me before. Do you know why I chose the Ice God Gorge and why I'm called Dao Seeking?" Han Fei shook his head blankly. "I'd like to see what your purpose is," he said. "There's a great horror under the abyss of the Ice God Gorge. The reason why I stay in the Ice God Gorge is very simple. I just want to strengthen my Dao through the power of the frozen soul. In the Dao-seeking state, the stronger the Dao is, the stronger the Dao is. I've been suppressing my Dao in the Dao-seeking state. In order to understand the Dao-seeking state and pave the way for future generations, I wrote the Book of Changes. However, I haven't been able to find a successor. It's a pity." Han Fei laughed in his heart. The old turtle also said in Han Fei's mind, "Bullsh asterisk T. The Dao in this man's body is chaotic. Only he has the Dao-seeking state. Bah, even I don't dare to be so shameless. This man is really shameless." Han Fei was even more amused. "I don't believe that there are people who are silent and selfless in this ocean world where the strong prey on the weak." Just by listening to Yuan Dao's bragging, Han Fei knew that this man's purpose was not simple. He even wanted to bluff him. But Han Fei looked very serious on the surface. "Lord Wen Dao cares about the Sea Clan, and I'm touched. However, why did you come to me? Although I think I'm not bad, compared to the Fish Dragon King, I'm still far behind." Yuan Dao's face turned slightly cold. "Of course, if I could use the Fish Dragon King, would I come to you?" Yuan Dao's face darkened. "There are only a few people who can catch my eye. If I didn't notice that you were talented, I wouldn't want to accept you as my successor." As he said, Yuan Dao didn't seem to be in a hurry. He handed a jade slip to Han Fei, but he said, "Not everyone can become my successor. Not everyone can cultivate this technique. Try it. If you can't do it, I won't accept you." Peak. Chapter 1220. Han Fei held a jade slip in his hand and sneered in his heart. "Are you pretending to be mysterious? Those are all my leftovers." He scanned with his perception, and information popped up in his mind. Book of Changes, venerable level, low quality, incomplete, introduction. Someone observed more than 100 great Daos and tried to fuse them into one. However, there were 3,000 Daos, each with different origins, and this technique forced them to be combined. This book focuses on the Dao of sacrifice. Cultivators can sacrifice their souls to obtain 100 marvelous methods. Deduced art, unknown deduction cost, 0/100 million note. When this technique is mastered, the cultivator will become a puppet. F***CK. Han Fei didn't know what to say at that time. This Yuan Dao was so vicious that it couldn't be any blacker. "If this person doesn't die, I won't be able to rest easy." Han Fei said in his heart, "This person looks like an old pedant, but I've never seen such a vicious person in my life. This time, it's either him or me. Old Turtle, when are we going to work together to kill this guy first?" The old turtle said leisurely, "At least we can't do it here. And although this person's Daos are mixed, he is definitely not weak in the Dao-seeking realm. I'm not strong enough to kill him without him knowing." Han Fei was speechless. "Wait a minute. You are also an emperor. You can't even kill a semi-venerable?" "Oh," the old turtle said angrily. "How dare you say that? I'm just a soul, and I came out incomplete. More than half of my Daos were swallowed by this gourd, and even my Daos were taken by you to be refined into meridians. I should be thankful that I'm still alive. Do you want me to kill a semi-venerable without anyone knowing?" Han Fei felt a little guilty. The old turtle did seem to be quite miserable. However, Han Fei didn't believe that he didn't have any capital. Han Fei immediately said, "You can have the little turtle next to the fish dragon king." The old turtle was speechless. "Do you think it's an ordinary peak level Dao-seeking cultivator? It's also a semi-venerable. If we join hands, we can only fight one at most. If the two of them attack together, it's a problem whether we can escape or not." Han Fei curled his lips. "Then what do you think I should do? Should I still practice this stupid technique?" Suddenly, Han Fei thought of something. What would happen if the old turtle practiced the Tao of changes? Could you and Tao win against the old turtle? Han Fei immediately pointed at the jade slip and said, "Look at it yourself. I don't think anyone can practice this technique except you." The old turtle sneered and thought to himself, "How can I cultivate this broken thing?" However, when the old turtle swept out with his perception, he immediately shouted, "This is simple. This person's understanding of the great Tao isn't even a billionth of this emperor's. Let this emperor test him a bit and squeeze him dry." Han Fei clenched his asteriscus. "No, I'm going to exploit you. It has nothing to do with me." The old turtle that night. Han Fei dug a cave house for himself in the ice cave of the Ice God Gorge and openly sealed the entrance of the cave, regardless of what others thought. At this moment, Yuan Dao was secretly looking at the cave house that Han Fei opened, nodding from time to time and murmuring, "Sure enough, this kind of inexperienced boy is easy to fool. As long as I borrow the power of the great Tao in the future, I can slowly deprive his soul. At that time, we can easily seize his body, and stepping into the Tao will be a piece of cake." Yuan Dao was thinking about the future, and Han Fei was asking, "How is it? Have you cultivated it?" The old turtle said, "Not so fast. If you succeed in cultivating it immediately, doesn't it prove that you are more talented than the fish dragon king?" Han Fei curled his lips. "Yes, but I really want to kill that guy as soon as possible." Until the next morning, Han Fei suddenly felt a wisp of strange power being absorbed into his body, and he suddenly opened his eyes. What power? Han Fei could clearly sense that this power did not fall on him, but was directly absorbed by the old turtle. The old turtle smiled coldly. "Interesting. It turns out that this person is planning to use this method to make others sacrifice their souls so that he can easily possess them." Han Fei knew this, but he still asked, "So, you sacrifice yourself?" "Humph. How can I be called sacrificing myself? I took the initiative to project a wisp of my soul over, but how can my soul be so easy to swallow?" Han Fei frowned and couldn't help but ask, "Can you use this method to get out of my sea of consciousness?" The old turtle's voice immediately sank. "How can a mere semi-venerable bear my soul? Besides, if this emperor were to sacrifice my entire divine soul, this gourd would probably eat this emperor." Han Fei said with a smile, "Don't pretend. You can definitely get out part of it. Don't you want to separate a wisp of your soul and occupy the turtle next to the fish dragon king? This one is not weak, is it? It should be stronger than that one. Isn't that more to your liking?" The old turtle sneered. "What do you know? That turtle belongs to my clan. It's natural for me to use it. I know how to inherit the Taoist connotation with my body. But this person's Taoist connotation is chaotic and my body is useless. Otherwise, how could he think of this method of possession?" Han Fei grinned. "It doesn't matter. Anyway, with this method, you can at least get out part of your soul. Kill this fish first, then kill the turtle, and then kill the rest of the peak-level sea spirits. I won't panic at all." Han Fei thought, that no matter how the old turtle complained to him, he was definitely not as weak as he said. But this old turtle must be afraid of the demon purification pot. Although they had an agreement now, Han Fei was still suspicious of this thing, which seemed a little too casual. Now that this opportunity had come, he might as well let the old turtle kill this fish first, and he could even cooperate with it to get the body of the turtle man. As for the old turtle wanting to kill him, he didn't believe it at all. Most of his soul was still locked in his body. What could he do? Han Fei's eyes suddenly flickered. If the old turtle could possess the body of the turtle man, then he could go to the so-called Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm to kill the Fish Dragon King and replace it. The old turtle seemed to know what Han Fei was thinking and immediately said, "That's good. We don't have to be suspicious of each other. Fine, if I have a body and join hands with you, no one in the same realm can be our opponent." Han Fei grinned. "Let's go to the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm first, and then replace it. Ice God Gorge. I will come back sooner or later." Han Fei only had one purpose to return to the Ice God Gorge, which was to find out what was under the Abyssal Canyon and why it attracted Little Black and Little White's attention. If it weren't for the fact that this was a place where strong masters lived, Han Fei really wanted to go down now. At this moment, Yuan Dao was a little dumbfounded. He guessed that Han Fei's strength should not be weak, and his soul should not be much weaker. However, in just one night, the quality of the soul that Han Fei sacrificed was astonishingly high. However, there seemed to be something wrong with this extremely high-quality soul. It was a bit too dark. It was he who swallowed this soul. But why did he have an extreme desire for power? Whoosh! Yuan Dao's first thought was that Han Fei was too eager for power, so the pursuit of power in his soul had reached an extreme point. Yuan Dao smiled faintly. It turns out that this is the real you. But it's better this way. The more you pursue power, the more you need my power. The next morning, Han Fei saw the Fish Dragon King walking over from afar with Lan Shui in high spirits, while the old tortoise man stood quietly on an ice platform, waiting. In addition to Han Fei, there were actually nearly 200 peak-level law enforcers waiting here. It seemed that they were going to go together. Han Fei was slightly surprised. There are quite a lot of people going. Isn't it just the Fish Dragon King and me going? Yuan Dao's voice sounded on the ice platform. "Everyone, enter the teleportation array. You can go." Han Fei glanced and saw that Yuan Dao seemed to be fine. "Old turtle, why is he not hurt at all?" The old turtle said, "Haste makes waste. This stupid technique can only sacrifice a little soul at a time. Otherwise, I would have eaten him already." Han Fei pondered and said, "Then when we leave the Ice God Gorge, sacrifice a few more times and eat him early. We have to separate from him first. There's no hurry. Aren't you going to the secret realm? After you go in, don't kill the Fish Dragon King first. Wait until I eat Yuan Dao first." Han Fei was stunned. "Does it matter?" The old turtle said, "These two people must be protecting the Fish Dragon King. If he dies and they find out, what will happen?" Han Fei nodded slightly. "Okay, then let's go to the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm first and act according to the situation." The Fish Dragon King had a good night. At this moment, he glanced at Han Fei and the others lazily. "What are your names?" Yu Kaling said, "Master, Yu Kaling." Han Fei said, "Yu Hanjia." The Fish Dragon King frowned slightly because Han Fei didn't address him respectfully. However, he didn't take it seriously. At most, he would throw him out to take care of the Fish Dragon King for a while. Thinking of this, the Fish Dragon King walked up to the ice platform with his head held high. He shouted in a low voice, "Let's go. Follow me to the ancient realm." Han Fei curled the corner of his mouth. "You can only show off for a few more days." Yu Kaling glanced at Han Fei and was a little confused. This Yu Hanjia doesn't seem to respect the Fish Dragon King very much. Han Fei and the others followed him to the ice platform. There was a large teleportation array there, but they didn't know where it led to. Before entering the teleportation array, Yuan Dao glanced at Han Fei with an ambiguous smile. Han Fei thought, "What are you looking at? I'll let you live for 2 more days at most. This old man is so evil. You want to take my body with a technique? Dream on." First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1221. Han Fei thought he would be teleported to the entrance of some secret realm, but with a swoosh, he returned to the fire spring. Han Fei wanted to explore the outer sea, but for some reason, he kept wandering around the ice realm. At this moment, everyone stood in the air above the Inferno Spring. They realized that this place was completely empty. There was no one here. The Fish Dragon King was confused. Did they all go to the front line? Yuan Dao shook his head slightly. In the past few days, the earth string of the fire spring was attacked by Shuimu Tian. Then, a Dao-seeking state trader appeared in the Ice God Gorge and plundered the fire spring. Everyone is panicking. Those who didn't go to the front line should have gone to Ice Mountain City. The Fish Dragon King curled his lips. Traitor, such creatures don't exist in the royal city. Let's go to the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. Along the way, Yuan Dao and Prime Minister Turtle were escorting them. If there were no accidents, it shouldn't be just them going to the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. Yuan Dao explained to the Ichthyosaur King, Dragon King, you have to remember one thing. You're not the only one who came to the royal city. You should know who you should trust and who you shouldn't. A fierce look flashed in the Fish Dragon King's eyes. Of course, I know very well. Just because I'm ranked 10th on the prodigy roll, there are many people who covet my position. But it doesn't matter. Let's settle this once and for all. It'll save us trouble in the future. As he spoke, Yuan Dao glanced at them and continued, the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm is said to be an ancient realm. Some people also call it the Lost World. In a sense, it can't even be considered a secret realm because there are only endless immortal souls and strange demon plants. Because it's sealed all year round, there are a lot of treasures there. It can be said that the worst treasures there are divine weapon materials. However, the spiritual chi and energy there are relatively sparse, so you have to prepare some spiritual fruits before you go in. You should have enough of those. Of course, although there are a lot of treasures, you have to be alive to take them. Also, there was something that had to be mentioned. If there was anyone here who could display the power of the Tao-seeking realm, they had to be careful. There was no rule suppression. Whoever uses the power of the Tao-seeking realm might encounter some inexplicable misfortune or be targeted by the great Tao of the Thousand Mountains Ancient Realm. The Ichthyosaur King let out a disdainful laugh. Mr. Wendao, it's just a mystical ground. What's there to explain? The most dangerous ones are the people inside. The geniuses of the 4 clans from the Waterwood Sky and the bewitching idiots from the Blood Sea Divine Wood City. The old tortoise man added, Young Master Dragon King, you have to be careful. After all, every clan has their own peerless geniuses. Take that Han Fei, for example. He killed so many geniuses of my monarch city in one battle. He cannot be underestimated. The Ichthyosaur King said impatiently, it's not like he can enter the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. Besides, he would have to suppress his cultivation if he went. Peak Sea Spirit, do you think I'm afraid of him? When have I, the Fish Dragon King, been afraid of anyone in the same realm? The Ichthyosaur King didn't care at all. He even looked back and said, after you enter, kill anyone from the Waterwood Sky. If you find a school of fiery red singing fish or a seductive woman wearing a red gauze dress, kill them all for me. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. Was it the Ichthyosaur King talking about the Millennium Snapper? Han Fei couldn't help but feel excited. 2 monarch cities and the Waterwood Sky. 3 forces exploring the same place. There would probably be a bloodbath. The Fish Dragon King said leisurely, treasure hunting and hunting are one thing. Rumor has it that the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm has the foundation to become a monarch. Although no one has ever seen it, you can give it a try. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. Another opportunity to become a monarch? Let's see who gets it when we kill our way through that damn place. For hours later, the place where the ice domain and the Sea of Flames bordered was not near the Wall of Flames. Instead, it was a sea with a mild climate. In the seawater, there were cold currents and warm currents intersecting. As a result, they became a gentle, warm current that washed the area. Han Fei perceived that there were thousands of people standing in different camps at the place where the currents converged. Han Fei didn't dare to spread his perception too early, so he immediately withdrew his perception as soon as it swept past. A few minutes later, when Han Fei and the others arrived at the place where the currents converged, he didn't look at the waterwood sky first. Instead, he looked at the large group of women in red. Yes, there were no men. They were all women, and they were all wearing seemingly thin clothes, as if the clothes would slip off their shoulders at any time. Han Fei looked around and soon found a woman among the group of women in red that he couldn't forget, Yang Ruiyun. When Han Fei heard that the Blood-Sea Divinewood City was full of big red trunks, he already knew where Yang Ruiyun and the others had gone. Where else could it be other than the waterwood sky? And this Blood-Sea Divine would seem to be a special royal city independent of the waterwood sky and the Bai royal city. For example, the Fish Dragon King didn't like the people of the Blood-Sea Divinewood City at all and threatened to kill all those in red clothes. Han Fei found that Yang Ruiyun seemed to be a person with great luck. In just a few years, he had gone through a lot of hardships to get to where he was today. But Yang Ruiyun had become a peak-level sea spirit in the blink of an eye. Interesting. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. He hadn't seen Yang Ruiyun for many years, and now she was no match for him at all. Han Fei suddenly thought of something. It was a pity that when he was in the level 3 fishery, he dug out a book from the big red trunks. It was a pity that the demon purification pot cleared it up during the tribulation. Otherwise, that thing would be of great use now. Of course, Han Fei didn't panic. That thing was evil, and as soon as it was taken out, it was full of demonic energy. Now that he had 2 sea-quelling bizarre treasures, he was no longer what he used to be. As if noticing Han Fei's gaze, Yang Ruiyun tilted her head and looked at him. However, unlike in the script, not only did Han Fei not move his eyes away, but there was even a weird smile on his lips. Yang Ruiyun frowned. For some reason, that person didn't seem to give her a good feeling. Next to her, someone said, "Ruiyun, that half-mermaid seems to have a crush on you?" Yang Ruiyun snorted. "One inferior bloodline." Someone chuckled. "If I give it to you, I don't believe you won't drink it." The Fish Dragon King suddenly looked at Han Fei. "Don't look at it. It's beautiful, but we'll still kill it. The Blood-Sea Divinewood City has always been at odds with our Bai royal city. Those blood demons will bewitch you, swallow your blood, and absorb your soul. Don't be blinded by their beauty." Han Fei was puzzled. Did the Millennium Snapper have this ability? However, he still responded first. "You're right, Master Dragon King." Han Fei glanced at Yang Ruiyun one last time, and then looked at the Shuemu Heaven. On the Shuemu Heaven side, there were people from all 4 clans. In this trip to the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, the Shuemu Heaven had the most peak-level law enforcers, followed by the Insect Clan, and then the Sky Clan. However, among the remaining tree demons, there were a few little tree men that caught Han Fei's attention. Normal tree demons were mostly in the shape of trees, but the roots under their feet were like legs, so they weren't slow at all. If they were on the ground, they could still drill into the ground, but they could drill many times faster than you. However, among the group of less than 100 tree demons, Han Fei found 3 thin little tree men with only a few leaves on their bodies, which looked like normal humans. These little tree men gave Han Fei the feeling that they were very similar to the little tree men in the deep-sea jungle in the level 2 fishery in the Blue Sea town. Oh no, not similar, but exactly the same. Wow! Han Fei thought to himself that he hadn't stayed in the Shuemu Heaven for long, and there were many creatures that he hadn't seen yet. Since there were little tree men in the Blue Sea town, what did it mean? Why were there little tree men in the Heavenly Water Village? Was there really only one demonic forest channel in the Yin-Yang Heaven that could connect to the Shuemu Heaven? In fact, Yang Ruiyun's appearance had already revealed the answer to Han Fei. The seaborne grassland in the level 3 fishery could also connect to the Shuemu Heaven. It could be seen that there might be many places connecting the 2 places, but most people didn't know about them. In the crowd, Han Fei also saw Shu Xiaoman. She was now fully armed, holding an eagle bow, with a saber on her waist and a serious look on her face. The only thing that didn't seem too serious was the insects lying all over the ground. There were one-horned, long-horned beetles, golden tortoise beetles, blade centipedes, blue-eyed mantises, and ghost-eyed spiders. Anyway, the insect clan gave Han Fei a creepy feeling, as if there were countless species in their race. Because there were so many species, it was hard to defend against them in a fight. God knew what special abilities these different insects had. Han Fei glanced around and found that there seemed to be only about 1,000 people from the Shuimu heaven, while at least 1,000 people from the two royal cities had come. Their purpose seemed to be very clear, which was to kill most of the people on the Shuimu heaven side. It would be best if they could kill all of them. They were all the backbone forces of the Shuimu heaven. Of course, the Shuimu heaven didn't want their peak-level law enforcers to die in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, so they sent as few as possible. However, before Han Fei could see where the experts were, he heard someone chuckle. "Yo, isn't this the Dragon King? We all thought you would go directly to the Dark Warport. Why did you go to the Realm of Ice instead?" The one who spoke was a male half-mermaid who looked more handsome than the Fish Dragon King. The Fish Dragon King's face immediately darkened. "Yu Hong, you should know your place first. Don't think that just because you came out to travel with me, you really think highly of yourself." A woman in a green dress floated on the surface of the sea and looked at the Fish Dragon King with a smile. "Dragon King, many people are watching you. I hope you can maintain your pride and keep your 10th place on the prodigy list." The Fish Dragon King's face darkened. "Shui Han Yin, don't interrupt. Otherwise, I will definitely go to your shell as a guest in the future." "Humph." The clam girl's face turned cold. "You should keep your position first." Han Fei couldn't help but glance at the Fish Dragon King. Good lord, it seems that there are a lot of enemies. Buzz, buzz. Before the Fish Dragon King and the others could bicker, a peak-level explorer walked out of the void. Han Fei knew the people from the human clan. Maybe because of Yi Yuchin's breakthrough, there were 2 peak-level explorers from the Flying Feather Clan in this trip. Han Fei had met Liu Lihan a few times. As for the Zerg clan, wait. Han Fei's pupils suddenly constricted. Liu Lihan and a few others came from the human clan. Cardinal and a few other big birds came from the Sky clan. A cross-eyed spider came from the Zerg clan. An old tree came from the tree demons. The appearance of the others might have been a coincidence, but the appearance of the old tree made Han Fei's heart skip a beat. Isn't this the old tree I saw when I first came to the Shuimu heaven? Isn't this old tree supposed to guard the outer gate of the demonic forest channel? Why did it come here today? Why did it come here? At that moment, Han Fei seemed to have guessed something. Someone had guessed that he was among the sea demons, so they deliberately let the powerhouses of the Shuimu heaven that he knew lead the team. What kind of message was this? Suddenly, Han Fei saw a young tree man who was looking around. Young tree man had been following him for 2 days, so she should be the one who knew him best. Therefore, if there was anything, he could ask young tree man directly after entering the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. Second update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1222. Han Fei quickly calculated in his heart. Only the Life Queen knew that he could blend in with the sea demons. Han Fei didn't know why the Life Queen knew. In Han Fei's opinion, it didn't make sense. Why did the Life Queen know that he could blend in with the sea demons? He was a half-mermaid through and through. Wow, the venerable token? Han Fei suddenly remembered that Jing Er's venerable token was still with him. Yes, it must have leaked his whereabouts, causing the Life Queen or Jing Er to notice what he did in the sea outside the realm of outer ice. However, Han Fei was still a little confused. From the moment he went to sea, he had thrown the venerable token into Forge the Universe. How could it still sense his location? Was this a F** King GPS? When the explorers came out of the battlefield one by one, the venerable realm powerhouses slowly cut through the void and walked out. Han Fei's first reaction was Wushang Shui. If it was her, it would further prove his judgment. They knew that he was among the sea demons. Sure enough, as Han Fei expected, he saw Wushang Shui and Jing Er walking out of the void together. On the Shuimu heaven side were Wushang Shui and Jing Er, and on his side were Clam Girl, a half-mermaid, and a mermaid. On the Blood Sea Divine Wood side, it was 2 twin sisters, both at the venerable realm, wearing crimson clothes. Han Fei didn't know why they loved red. In addition, Han Fei was also very puzzled. How did the Blood Sea Divine Wood reproduce when other families could reproduce? Why did they all become women? Also, When he was fighting under the big red trunk in the level 3 fishery, women were not the only ones who turned into Millennium Snappers. Many men also turned into Millennium Snappers. Could it be that when they came to the Shuemu heaven, some strong masters found out that they were men, so they killed them all? Jing shouted, "Someone from the Shuemu heaven just passed the tribulation and entered the Tao. You want to challenge the Thousand Mountains ancient realm for such a trivial matter? Do you really think the Shuemu heaven is a pushover?" On Han Fei's side, the mermaid Venerable said indifferently, "The Shuemu heaven will be defeated by the Sea Clan sooner or later. You will eventually belong to them. Don't say that your Shuemu heaven has another king tier talent, but that person has to have the opportunity to become a king tier. You've been quiet for so long. Aren't you still a supremacy?" Peaceful bared her teeth. "Say that again. Do you believe that I will chop off your tail and make it into a hot pot?" Everyone was confused. What was a hot pot? However, no one cared about this. How could ordinary people interrupt when a venerable one was speaking? The half-mermaid Venerable chuckled. "Serenity, to be honest, whether this battle happens or not, the Thousand Mountains ancient realm will open sooner or later. Furthermore, we are already used to your Waterwood Sky's daily defeats. I'm just surprised that nearly 300 of you humans have come. That's rare," the clam girl said softly. "In the past, half of them were occupied by the insect race. Why? Do you think that the human race has produced two geniuses?" Wushang Shui glanced at Han Fei and the others coldly. "Humph, you will regret looking down on the human race." Peaceful echoed, "Yes, it's hard to say who will die in the Thousand Mountains ancient realm this time." Giggle, the Blood Sea Divine would chuckle cheerfully. Jing Wushang Shui, and the venerables on Han Fei's side all frowned. None of them seemed to like the women on the Blood Sea Divine with City's side. One of the twin sisters said, "It's so interesting to watch you bicker. Why don't you join us in the Blood Sea region?" Another person added, "That's right. We have plenty of red balls in the Blood Sea region. You can become a good girl in the Blood Sea region after eating them." Many people shivered slightly, including Han Fei. The red ball was the kind of fruit that grew on the big red trunk for 10,000 years. Some creatures could be eaten, and some couldn't. As far as Han Fei could see, only special creatures like the hexagon starfish could eat them, but human beings would turn into Millennium Snappers after eating them. As he expected, a half-mermaid Venerable from the Bai Bei Royal City snorted. "Shuaran, Shueshin, you'd better behave yourself. Otherwise, don't blame the Bai Bei Royal City for sealing the Blood Sea region." "Ha! How arrogant. You can try. Girls, apart from those insects, everything else is your target. If you run into an opportunity, your first target will still be the opportunity." The two venerables echoed each other, not caring about other people's gazes at all. On the insect clan's side, a fire cockatrice insect buzzed. "What do you mean? Can't we, the Zerg, eat your blood? Boys, these women look down on us. Let's eat them after we enter the Thousand Mountains ancient realm." As the more simple-minded Zergs, most of them agreed. A one-horned longhorn beetle said solemnly, "I can stab a few of them with my big horn." A centipede stood up. "I can cut them into thin slices." A spider tapped its steel claws. "I really want to hang them up and make a nest." Because they had been provoked, the entire Zerg race, which was close to 400 people, started buzzing. Everyone was annoyed by the noise. At first, they could understand it. In the end, there was a lot of buzzing noises. God knew what they were buzzing about. Sure enough, faced with the restlessness of the insects, the twin sisters immediately snorted. "Okay, there are less than 5,000 people on the three sides, but it's enough. Don't clamor here." On the Bai Bei Royal City's side, a venerable said to everyone via voice transmission, "Everyone, listen up. Whoever kills one Shimu Tian will be rewarded with a mid-quality divine weapon, 5,000 kilograms of spiritual spring, and a heaven-level high-quality combat skill. If you kill one blood demon, you will be rewarded with a low-quality divine weapon, 100,000 kilograms of spiritual spring, and a heaven-level high-quality combat skill." Hearing this, Han Fei was shocked. Wow, they're really going all out. There were nearly 3,000 people on this side, including the blood demon. If they were all killed, Wouldn't the one-time reward be tens of millions of kilograms of spiritual spring? Also, no matter how worthless the mid-quality and low-quality divine weapons were, there were still thousands of them. Han Fei seemed to see hope. No, I have to have a share of it. As expected, the rewards offered by the other two sides should be similar. Han Fei and the others only felt the impact of the airwaves, and they all backed off. Yuan Dao said to those who came from the Ice Realm, after entering, if you have any trump cards, don't hide them. Use them all. Those who can come to the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm won't be weak. The Turtle Prime Minister glanced at Han Fei and the others. After entering, listen to young Master Dragon King's command. If anyone is weak and dares to act recklessly, the others can kill them directly. I will reward them. Han Fei was threatened just like that. Han Fei also noticed that the two people who provoked the Fish Dragon King before were looking at him coldly. If he guessed correctly, they were going to attack the Fish Dragon King in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. The Fish Dragon King seemed to know what these people were thinking. It snorted and didn't care at all. Rumble, the sky was covered by dark clouds. In the blink of an eye, thunder rumbled and heavy rain poured. On the surface of the sea, a circular vortex slowly rose. Then a huge vortex appeared, and in the vortex, a circle of huge white teeth appeared. Han Fei was dumbfounded. Were those King teeth? There were 3 circles in total, and it looked extremely creepy. It was as if they were jumping into the mouth of a sea monster. Go in. 3 parties at the same time. Hurry. Remember, the exit will be closed in 3 days. The Fish Dragon King shouted in a low voice, "Follow me. When we return, you will all be greatly rewarded." The group of people responded one by one. "We swear to follow the Dragon King until death." Han Fei glanced at Yang Riyun and then at Young Man. In the end, he saw Yuan Dao giving him a deep look. Han Fei didn't change his expression, as if he didn't see Yuan Dao's look. However, Yu Kailing, who was also the Fish Dragon King's follower, frowned and looked at Han Fei deeply. She felt that Han Fei was a bit strange, but she couldn't tell what was strange. As for the other follower, Lan Shuer, she didn't even notice Han Fei and Yu Kailing. She kept sticking to the Fish Dragon King, as if she was afraid that the Fish Dragon King would run away. Swish, swish, swish. The 3 parties entered the big mouth, one after another. As soon as they entered, Han Fei felt his body turn over, and then his eyes lit up. Then he appeared on the sea. Han Fei's first glance was not to see where the thousands of people had gone, but to see a group of mountains in the distance, towering above the sea. Most of these mountains were half submerged in the sea, and the other half protruded above the sea. Some were high, and some were low. Between the mountains, there were many visible gaps. Han Fei couldn't help but gasp. There was another world hidden here. However, Han Fei felt that it seemed a bit familiar. The old turtle said, "Have you found that there is not much spiritual energy in this world? It is also lacking vitality and shrouded in the air of death. Especially on those mountains, the air of death is very strong." While Han Fei was thinking about this problem, he suddenly heard the Fish Dragon King roar, "Come here." Swish, 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 swish. At this moment, the 3 parties quickly gathered together. The first one was the Blood Demon. A Blood Demon chuckled and said, "If you want to fight, just fight. We're leaving." He had to admit that the Blood Demon camp, which was made up of all women, was very smart. Knowing that the relationship between the Baibei Royal City and the Shuamu Heaven was very bad, they chose to retreat as soon as they met. They had plenty of time to hunt. They didn't have to rush. Han Fei quickly came behind the Fish Dragon King, only to hear the old turtle suddenly say, "This Thousand Mountains ancient realm is sealed by the Great Way, and the strength of those who enter is limited to the level of law enforcer. Wait, if you can fool the Great Way, you can temporarily use the power of an explorer." Han Fei paused. If the old turtle didn't remind him, he would have forgotten that he was an explorer. He was an explorer. How did he sneak into a secret realm of the law enforcer level? The 3rd chapter. I didn't break out during the Dragon Boat Festival, and I couldn't break out. I worked overtime during the holidays, and I worked overtime during the weekends. More importantly, I couldn't keep up with the speed of the updates. End of this chapter. Chapter 1223. Chirp. A big bird flew across the sky and shouted, "Get ready to fight." A bug buzzed and roared, "Get ready to eat these manfish." On the sea demon side, some people left without looking back. Among them, the clam girl who provoked the Fish Dragon King just now said, "Fish Dragon King, you are the strongest here. You can't be afraid to fight." Giggle. Kaling immediately reminded, "Master Dragon King, don't be provoked by words." The guy named Hong smiled and said, "Fish Dragon King, let's have a competition. Who can kill more enemies when we go out?" The Fish Dragon King's face darkened. "Let's compete then." Hong, you brat. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. Do you think you're worthy enough to take my place? Don't even think about it. On the side of the Waterwood Heaven, 300 human beings came this time. However, in the Waterwood Heaven, the human race was the smallest race. Normally, there was no reason for so many people to come. But since they were here, the leaders outside were all his acquaintances. He couldn't let these people be exhausted in the battle. Han Fei immediately said to Shu Xiaoman via voice transmission, "I'm Han Fei. I'm lurking next to the Fish Dragon King for the time being." "Yes, you're looking in the right direction. I'm the most handsome one among the dozens of bodyguards around this silly girl." When Shu Xiaoman received Han Fei's voice transmission, she was shocked. Sure enough, the Jing messenger was right. Han Fei has such a magical ability. I haven't seen him for a few days, and he's already mixed into the Sea Demons team. Shu Xiaoman immediately responded, "Is it really you? How did you sneak into the Sea Demons team?" Han Fei was speechless. "Why are you talking to me about this now? Let's cut to the chase. In this battle, we can at most fight a little." Hum. Needless to say, some insect clan powerhouses had already swept across the sky and attacked the Sea Demon camp. They heard Shu Xiaoman shout, "Fight," and retreat at the same time. "My Waterwood Heavenly Eyes is not here to fight." "Don't fight." The Fish Dragon King shouted. "You want to leave? It depends on whether you are qualified to leave or not." After all, this was not a random secret realm, or it was not a secret realm at all. It was normal for the two sides to fight as soon as they entered the battlefield. Swish, swish, swish. The rain of swords had already swept over. Above the sky, the tornado swept across, and the sky-tearing claws clawed at the Sea Demon. There were almost no weaklings among the Sea Demons. Those that were sent into the Thousand Mountains ancient realm might not be very strong, but they were definitely not weak either. Moreover, they were both at the peak of the Sea Spirit realm. How weak could they be? Ding, ding, ding. Dang, dang, dang. The surface of the sea exploded, and a strange light flickered in the sky. Shouts and howls instantly rang out. And at that moment, Han Fei grabbed the harpoon in his hand, followed the Fish Dragon King, and used the void lines to capture 10 peak-level sea spirits. Although Han Fei couldn't directly use the power of an explorer, his soul power was already very strong. Before he became an explorer, he could control at least 3 peak-level law enforcers with the void lines. If it were ordinary peak-level law enforcers, he could control at least 5 or 6 of them. At this moment, he was already an explorer, and his divine soul was much higher than that of a peak sea spirit. What's wrong with controlling 10 people at once with lightning speed? Isn't that easy? After practicing the sky-stealing technique, Han Fei found that the void lines had become stronger and could even break through some people's divine soul protection. However, after all, these Sea Spirit Realm sea demons were not weak. Besides, the materials Han Fei used to refine the void lines were no longer of a high enough grade. The materials he found at the beginning were basically the meridians of creatures at the Sea Spirit Realm. At this moment, although the fishing line of this level was still very powerful, it was no longer invincible. Han Fei didn't know who among them had divine soul protection. Therefore, he still missed one in this attempt to grab him. The fish that escaped the net exclaimed, "Pay attention, everyone, pay attention to protect your divine soul." Someone in the Waterwood sky has a method of attacking with divine soul. As soon as this remark came out, many sea demons' expressions changed, and they immediately became vigilant. A method of attacking the divine soul? How could they do that? This was even more difficult to guard against than physical injuries, almost like their spiritual piercing. Han Fei cursed in his heart. It seemed that it was time to consider practicing the void lines again. The ones of the sea spirit realm were no longer enough. He had to upgrade them. Of course, even so, Han Fei still controlled the 9 sea demons and pretended to sprint. Han Fei said to Shu Xiaoman via voice transmission, "Shu Xiaoman, act with me." Shu Xiaoman cheered up. "Okay." In a flash, Shu Xiaoman shouted, "Everyone, we must unite. The enemy far outnumbers us. Let's fight with all our strength." A man holding an eagle bow, guarding Shu Xiaoman, shouted, "Let's fight while we retreat." With that, the man shot out arrows like rain, and the shadowless arrow stream burst out. The Fish Dragon King sneered. "So, it's you who took the lead? Let me see what the heavenly talents of the waterwood sky are like." Dragon King's 6 collapsing mountains. The spear light flashed, and in the void, a clanging sound burst out. The shadowless arrow stream failed to kill the Fish Dragon King. The archer said in surprise, "This person is so fast." "Young man, let me," however, Shu Xiaoman directly pushed him away. In the startled eyes of the archer, Shu Xiaoman shot straight with her bow. Explode, explode, explode. BM, BM, BM. The Fish Dragon King was about to see how strong the leaders of the Waterwood Sky were. But in the next second, 3 peak-level sea spirits around him suddenly exploded. In an instant, within a radius of dozens of kilometers, the wind and waves shook violently. The sea was blown up, and the Fish Dragon King was covered in dust. Dozens of people around him were directly injured by the explosion. Who knew that their comrades who were still sprinting a second ago would explode in the next second? At this moment, the Fish Dragon King was dumbfounded. What kind of combat skill is this? Has it become popular to shout out combat skills? After all, it was the self-explosion of peak-level sea spirits, and its power could not be underestimated. The Fish Dragon King was blasted away by the 3 explosions, covered in dust and covered in blood. However, the Fish Dragon King was fine. After all, he was a super strong master who ranked 10th on the heavenly talent list. How could he be shaken by the self-explosion of an ordinary peak-level sea spirit? At this moment, he was still shaking with his spear, causing the void to tremble. He shouted, "Despicable means, see how easily my Dragon King spear breaks it." However, Shu Xiaoman pointed at the Fish Dragon King. "Explode." "Huh." Rumble. The fish dragons were blown into the sea again. Plop. In the rolling waves, the Fish Dragon King was injured by 4 of his companions before he could kill one of them. How embarrassing would it be if he were to flaunt this to others? Roar. With a flash between the Fish Dragon King's eyebrows, a weird and ferocious giant snake covered with red and white scales appeared. The Fish Dragon King cursed. "I'd like to see who else you are controlling. Don't come over." Damn. As soon as the Fish Dragon King turned over, he found that 3 more people had surrounded him, giving him no chance to make a move at all. With 3 bang, bang, bang sounds coming from Shu Xiaoman's mouth, a terrifying self-explosion sound of boom, boom, boom came from the surface of the sea. At this moment, the Fish Dragon King was really dumbfounded, thinking, am I so King lucky? I just found a random person, and I met such a strong opponent? Or are the people of the Shuemu heaven so powerful now? I didn't even feel it, but the people around me have already been controlled by the other party? Damn it, the Fish Dragon King was a little weak. Who could withstand this? He had prepared a spear, but before he could even poke it out, he had been bombarded 7 times in a row. This time, the Fish Dragon King immediately shouted, "Don't come close to me." In Han Fei's heart, the old turtle's voice sounded, "I really feel sorry for this kid." "How did he meet you?" Han Fei responded, "What's wrong with meeting me? It's his luck to meet me. By the way, do you still want to make a sacrifice? This is a good opportunity not to be suspected." The old turtle said leisurely, "That's true." Han Fei pretended to retreat, shouting as he retreated, "Don't panic, Master Dragon King. Although this person's means are amazing, fortunately, they are not powerful enough. Seeing that Han Fei could still speak, the Fish Dragon King heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, there was nothing wrong with the follower I chose. Otherwise, this scene would be too embarrassing. Shu Xiaoman pointed her finger again, and there were 2 consecutive explosions. This time, because one of them was deliberately let into the crowd by Han Fei just now. There was a lucky guy who was unfortunately chosen by the Grim Reaper. While he was still in a daze, he was blown to death. Seeing this scene, the Fish Dragon King immediately took a breath. Let's go. Don't panic. This is just the beginning. And the human beings, the Sky Clan, the Insect Clan, and the Tree Demons who witnessed Shu Xiaoman's finger poking. They were all dumbfounded at this moment. Damn, where did this godlike skill come from? Can you fight like this? 9 consecutive explosions at the beginning? Who dares to fight with you? Shu Xiaoman secretly stuck out her tongue. This feeling, why does it feel a little cool? How great would it be if I could really kill someone by just pointing my finger twice in the air? While Shu Xiaoman was dreaming, outside the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, Yuan Dao was cultivating in seclusion and was not ready to fight anyone. Suddenly, he felt Han Fei's prayer. Immediately, he made a decision. He spread the law of truth in his mind, and what he got in return was a black soul. This time, Yuan Dao felt that his heart skipped a beat. An extreme thirst for blood and the pursuit of power came to his mind. What a terrifying and tough soul. It's the first time I've seen someone's desire for power to such an extent. I'm afraid this Yuhanjia is stronger than I thought. Yuan Dao's eyes lit up. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to the day when he becomes a walking dead. Chapter 1224. In the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, only the Fish Dragon King's side was fighting. Half of them had already rushed to the mountains as soon as they came in. As a matter of fact, the start was not smooth. The Ichthyosaur King's face was covered in dust from the explosions. As a heavenly talent, he suffered a loss in the first round. He pointed his spear at Shu Xiaoman. Human, I'll remember you. Don't give me a chance, or I'll cut your head off. Shu Xiaoman sneered. I bet you can't survive the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. To the bystanders, it sounded like 2 powerful experts were exchanging harsh words with each other. But in fact, the Fish Dragon King's threat was real. But Shu Xiaoman didn't threaten him at all. She knew that the Fish Dragon King was doomed. She didn't know what Han Fei's purpose was. However, Han Fei had already snuck to his side. She couldn't figure out how this arrogant heavenly talent of the Sea Clan could survive Han Fei's attack. However, Shu Xiaoman wasn't immersed in the pleasure of pretending to be a heavenly talent. Seeing that the Fish Dragon King and the others were about to retreat, she immediately said to Han Fei via voice transmission, Han Fei, Messenger Jing said 3 things. First, protect the people of the Shuimu Heaven, Baibei Royal City, and the Blood Sea Divine Wood. Kill as many as you can. Second, there are secrets in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. You can search for them. Third, can you turn into a woman? Han Fei, who was running with the Fish Dragon King, suddenly staggered. Immediately, the Fish Dragon King, Yu Kaling, and the others all stepped aside vigilantly. The Fish Dragon King even pointed a spear at Han Fei. Speak. Han Fei hurriedly said, I'm fine. It's just that some soul power tried to attack me just now, but it didn't succeed. Phew. Yu Kaling, Lan Shui, and the others all breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Han Fei could still speak. Otherwise, they would be horrified. Just how strong was that woman? If she could control someone as strong as Han Fei, who else couldn't she control? But Yu Kaling still asked, Yu Hanjia, where did you meet me for the first time? Everyone looked vigilant. If Han Fei gave a wrong answer, they would kill him immediately. Han Fei grinned. On the way to Iceberg City, of course. I was looking for a place to make a breakthrough. Only then did Yu Kaling feel relieved. She turned her head and said, that woman, Shui Mu Tian, has strange methods. She can actually control dozens of people in a row. His divine soul power must be extremely high. We need to be careful when we meet him in the future. The Fish Dragon King snorted coldly. If it weren't for the fact that these people are too weak, why would I need to be so cautious? Forget it. We'll have to face each other sooner or later. Follow me to the front to explore. Seeing that Han Fei was fine, everyone was no longer worried. He replied from afar, "I can't. I'm a man. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm going to follow this idiot into the Thousand Mountains ancient realm." When the initial battle came to an end, the 800 or so people dispersed. Even though they were all prodigies from Baibei Royal City, they belonged to the 4 major regions, and each had their own territory. Besides, the number of sea demons was much higher than that of humans, who could recognize each other. Before they came in, the leading Tao-seeking realm powerhouse reminded them of the existence of the Fish Dragon King, Yu Hong, and the others, and asked them to be careful. They didn't want to hang out with the top heavenly talents like the Fish Dragon King. Just the scene just now, in a single exchange, dozens of people around the Ichthyosaur King had fallen. This scene made their blood freeze. Naturally, there would be heavenly talents to deal with heavenly talents. Were they going to die? Just now, Han Fei's void lines attacked 2 people around the Fish Dragon King. Those 2 people weren't even his followers, but one of them could resist the power of the void lines and ran away. It could be seen that even though Han Fei looked down on the people around the Fish Dragon King, they were still heavenly talents. However, they were still far from being a heavenly talent like Han Fei. At this moment, there were 11 people around the Fish Dragon King, including himself. They were all brought out from the Ice God Gorge by the Fish Dragon King. As for the other people who came out from the Ice God Gorge, the Fish Dragon King didn't think highly of them either. The Fish Dragon King shouted, "There are thousands of giant mountains in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. It's a waste of time to explore them one by one. Follow me to the depths of the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm." Han Fei finally understood why so many people in the royal city didn't like the Fish Dragon King. He didn't even think about it once. You want to rush in at the start? Do you know what's inside? Do you know how dangerous it is inside? Once you really rush in, if someone comes to ambush you, you will really be alone and helpless. Han Fei couldn't help shaking his head slightly and said in his heart, "Old turtle, how is you and Dao? Just now, I felt some energy being sucked into your body. Is it done?" The old turtle was speechless. How can it be so fast? This is only the second sacrifice. I can't sacrifice a few times in an hour. That way, you and Dao will definitely notice that my soul is eroding him. Don't panic. If I do it 1 or 2 more times, he won't be able to resist, even if he wants to. On the other side, Han Fei said patiently, "I'm afraid that I won't be able to wait more than 1 or 2 times before I kill this idiot Fish Dragon King." The old turtle was silent for a moment. "Take it easy. After killing you and Dao, I have to find a way to kill that turtle under the nose of the Venerable." Han Fei shrugged. "Okay, I'm not sure how long I can wait. Once this Fish Dragon King threatens the people of Shuemu Heaven, I will kill him in minutes." The old turtle said, "Boy, you can possess someone, right? Why don't you try to possess this Fish Dragon King?" Han Fei curled his lips. "I can kill him and become him. Why should I possess him? Possession is also dangerous. What if this guy has a soul-type treasure? You were also trapped in my sea of consciousness by the calabash, weren't you?" Hearing Han Fei's words, the old turtle was speechless. Who knew that he would encounter such a situation when he possessed a random person? Why was he so lucky? After a moment, swish, swish, swish above the sky, some creatures of the Sky Clan flew past quickly. However, to Han Fei and the others' horror, when the first big bird rushed into the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, above the mountains, blackbirds spread their wings and rose into the sky. Because those creatures were particularly large, Han Fei and the others could clearly see that the bodies of those blackbirds were incomplete. Some of their wings were full of holes, some of their feathers were dry, some of their beaks were broken in half, and some of their claws were gone. They were the undead creatures of the Sky Clan. However, to Han Fei's slight surprise, they didn't attack the creatures of the Sky Clan. In his opinion, these were actually not immortal heroic souls. They still had incomplete bodies, so they should be regarded as undead creatures. The immortal heroic souls existed to protect something, while the undead creatures might simply exist to live. Otherwise, they would have chosen to perish instead of becoming corpses. Before Han Fei raised his question, many people around him had already expressed their doubts. Someone asked in surprise. Won't the undead creatures intercept the same species? The fish dragon king snorted. They're just some sky clan creatures. Let's kill them. They flew across the sky. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei and the others broke into the valley between the two mountains. However, the valley was not fully reflected. It was submerged about 3,000 meters under the sea. On the surface of the sea, clusters of dark green seaweeds gathered over. Han Fei's heart did a flip. Dream-eating algae? Yes, he recognized this spiritual plant at first glance. When he was in the 100,000 Mountains, he often saw this kind of demonic plant in the coastal area. Sure enough, the next moment, Han Fei felt that he had a slight illusion in front of his eyes, as if he were covered by a layer of mist. However, the power of the dream-eating algae couldn't shake him anymore. They didn't even have the ability to confuse the people around him. However, since the dream-eating algae couldn't do it, and the void lines didn't work, Han Fei directly switched to mental puncture this time. Puff! Suddenly, among the 11 people, one of them was bleeding from his 7 orifices, and his chest was spurting blood wildly. The fish dragon king frowned. Useless. You can't even resist the dream-eating algae. Why did I choose you? This person said, Master Dragon King, it's a very strong mental attack. Swish! The fish dragon king picked up a large piece of dream-eating algae and cleared the sea area 2,000 meters in front of him. The fish dragon king smiled contemptuously. Ignore these dream-eating algae. Fly over. Chirp, chirp, quack. On a mountain peak, hundreds of corpses of the Sky Clan leaped out. The leading one turned out to be a swallow-tailed kite, a special bird that also knew the heavenly void divine walking technique. When he was learning from a sky-swimming falcon, Shiman Linglan was learning from this swallow-tailed kite, so it was extremely fast. Humph! How dare you punish me when you're dead? Break it! The fish dragon king's spear pierced through the void and directly penetrated the swallow-tailed kite before it could react. Han Fei's face turned cold. Han Fei frowned. This guy's close distance was indeed not weak. Its speed was comparable to Zhang Xuanyu's instant mystic spear. One was world's end near, the other was time stop. They seemed to be very similar, but each had its own characteristics. However, seeing that the fish dragon king attacked the Sky Clan, Han Fei secretly swore, How dare you attack the Sky Clan? This time, even if God himself came, he wouldn't be able to save you. Han Fei suddenly shouted, What are you waiting for? How can a Master Dragon King take action in person? Are you the Master, or is the Master Dragon King the Master? Huh? The Fish Dragon King was taken aback. Right? I found so many followers. Why do I have to deal with such a small matter myself? Immediately, the Fish Dragon King looked at Han Fei and smiled. This kid is really insightful. Top. Chapter 12:25. Being greeted by Han Fei, the Fish Dragon King felt very pleased. He shouted in a low voice, Experience is an indispensable part of becoming a strong master. Don't think that you can go to the Shuemu, sky, occasionally and fight a few battles. War is just a kind of experience. After a while, the Fish Dragon King pointed to a particularly high mountain in the distance and said, Go there. The more conspicuous the place is, the easier it is to find opportunities. See? Behind that mountain, there seems to be a green light soaring into the sky. Someone took a breath and said, Master Dragon King, there are blood demons over there. How far could the mountains be from each other? Although these peaks were not connected, they were only separated by 7 or 8 peaks, more than 200 kilometers. In Han Fei's perception, within a radius of 1,000 kilometers, almost no one could escape his perception. And there were as many as 50 places that couldn't be scanned by his perception. On almost every mountain that appeared in his perception, there would be 1 or even 2 places that couldn't be detected. For example, Yang Ryun and the others were about 30 sea peaks away from Han Fei at this moment. At this moment, they were surveying a place of spiritual plants at the bottom of the sea. On the other side, Xu Xiaoman and more than a dozen men and women were galloping on the sea and had just rushed into this mountain range. And in Han Fei's perception, There were indeed 7 or 8 blood demons that had rushed over to the mountain that the Fish Dragon King pointed at. It could be seen that the other party did have an advantage by going one step ahead. Like the Fish Dragon King, Han Fei entered the mountains and saw the mountain at first glance. However, his eyes were not on the mountain itself, but the green light soaring into the sky that the Fish Dragon King mentioned. Heavenly Vine? Han Fei's eyes suddenly narrowed. From that height, the degree of sealing off his perception, and the vague feeling of vines. What else could it be if not Heavenly Vine? Han Fei seemed to have discovered something. While rushing forward with the Fish Dragon King and the others, he sensed every nearby mountain and looked over bit by bit. Suddenly, Han Fei found a strangely shaped platform on one of the mountain peaks. The platform seemed to be formed by a mountain collapse. In his impression, there seemed to be such a place in the Grand Myriad Mountains. Then, Han Fei found a big pit on a mountain on the other side. In his memory, there seemed to be a demonic plant that told him that it was the place where a Dalmatian cultivated in seclusion. Gulp! 100,000 mountains? Han Fei didn't feel good at all. Where was this place if not the 100,000 mountains? As he searched with his perception, memories surfaced in his mind. The surrounding environment gradually became familiar. He had tried every mountain and every flight path here. The reason why he didn't recognize it at first glance was that there were almost no demon plants on Harmony Mountain. That was why he had subconsciously ignored it. It was no wonder that he felt a sense of familiarity when he first entered. It turned out that this place was actually the Grand Myriad Mountains. Back then, he and a falcon had almost flown all over the 100,000 mountains. Han Fei had even been to the Divine Child Peak, which no creature wanted to go to. Stop. Later, kill the blood demons first. Don't listen to the weird melody that they are playing. Fish Cold Armor. Yu Kaling quickly patted Han Fei on the shoulder. What are you thinking about? It seems that you're very absorbed in it. Han Fei took a breath and said, Nothing. I just feel that the terrain and environment here are so strange. Han Fei's heart sank slightly, and he scanned again with his perception. He found that except for the undead creatures of the Sky Clan rushing towards them, there were no beasts or war giants here. However, there were some rotten insect bodies on the bottom of the sea, trembling as they propped themselves up. The Fish Dragon King didn't intend to take action, so Han Fei, Yu Kaling, and Lan Shui naturally wouldn't take action either. The three of them were the Fish Dragon King's subordinates, so they could only rely on the remaining heavenly talents of the Ice God Gorge to take action. At the moment when the 7 people rushed out one after another, a sneer appeared on Han Fei's face. All of a sudden, a strange ding, ding, ding sound could be heard from the void. Huh! Han Fei couldn't stand the 9 sounds of the Great Way when he tried it. When he was still a law enforcer, he naturally couldn't use them to kill explorers. But now, he was already at the Explorer realm. Couldn't he use them to control the Sea Spirit realm? Swish! 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 The Fish Dragon King and the others all turned pale, and the Fish Dragon King roared angrily. It's a blood demon! Blood demon curse! Guard your minds! The Fish Dragon King roared, his face solemn. He didn't expect that the blood demon would target him from the very beginning. It didn't make sense. Besides, why didn't he find where the blood demon was? Was it a peerless blood demon of the same level as him? In the sky, some people danced angrily, some attacked their companions with bloodshot eyes, and some were in grief and joy. They even foolishly rushed towards the undead creatures of the Sky Clan. Puff! Puff! The eagle claws tore the air, and its sharp beak pierced the air. In an instant, for people were directly stabbed to death or scratched to death. They probably didn't even know what they were doing when they died. He had just rushed out, and before he could even show his loyalty, he had already fallen. There were also 2 people who were extremely enraged by the 9 sounds and went berserk. Han Fei secretly activated it, and a scene of the environment appeared in his mind. In the eyes of those 2 people, they only saw the Fish Dragon King hugging Lan Shui while pointing at them and laughing. Baby, do you see that? You want to follow me with such strength? That's just wishful thinking. Then the Fish Dragon King that Han Fei outlined scolded, You 2 bastards! Why aren't you killing the enemies? If it's useless, you might as well die." In an instant, the two of them were infuriated. "We are King Heavenly Talents. Why we have to be so humble in front of the Fish Dragon King? Why we have to fight for you? Why do you have to mock us like this?" Huh. Flying star explosion. One of the half-mermaids was directly stained with blood, and a starry sea flying fish fused into his body. The harpoon in his hand flashed, and he instantly rushed to the Fish Dragon King. The Fish Dragon King was furious. "Son of a TCH, are you crazy? How dare you betray your master?" But at this moment, a huge scorpion-tailed red needle emerged from another half-mermaid and pierced through the void. "Go to hell." Han Fei remained calm and pretended that he couldn't react in time, but Kaling had already pounced out. Han Fei glanced at Lan Schwerer, who was pushed out by the Fish Dragon King, and his eyes flashed as his soul pierced. Puff! Lan Schwerer didn't expect things to develop like this. The person next to her was ranked 10th on the Heavenly Talent list in the Royal City. How could a few trifling sky, clan, undying creatures pose a threat to them? However, the truth was that it had happened. Those undead creatures were still pouncing because they couldn't hear the 9 sounds of the Great Way at all, and the others were almost all hit. Lan Schwerer bled from her 7 orifices, and her body froze in midair after being pierced by Han Fei's soul. She was pierced by the flying star explosion again. The Fish Dragon King roared, "Be****, go to hell." The Fish Dragon King flipped his hand, and a spear appeared in front of the half-mermaid's chest. Bam! The spear pierced this person. Lan Schwerer was pierced by a centipede again. What a beautiful half-mermaid. Her body quickly turned dark green. Not only was her body pierced twice, but she was also poisoned. Suddenly, Lan Schwerer burst out. A terrifying power burst out of Lan Schwerer. That was the power of the Tao-seeking state. It seemed that at the last moment, Lan Schwerer's desire to survive made her exert her strongest combat power. Lan Schwerer withdrew an icicle with one hand, and then the seawater surged, wrapped her up, and froze her into an iceberg. This should be a kind of self-defense power. However, through the ice, Han Fei saw that Lan Schwerer was about to turn dark green. She should not be far from death. Besides, when Lan Schwerer burst out the power of the Tao-seeking state, there was a sudden bell ring, and even Han Fei was shaken to the ground. The rules of the Great Way? Han Fei thought to himself. Fortunately, Lan Schwerer's power came and went quickly. Otherwise, I don't know what would have happened to her. Han Fei didn't care about Lan Schwerer's life at all. He shouted, "How dare you? How dare you attack the Dragon King? Who gave you the guts?" Yukaling's face was extremely dark. For some reason, when she set off from the Ice God Gorge, she had been uneasy and felt that something was wrong. How long had it been since they entered the 1,000-mountain ancient realm? Not even half an hour had passed, and they hadn't climbed a single mountain yet. Almost all her comrades were dead. Yes, a total of 11 people followed the Fish Dragon King into the 1,000-mountain ancient realm. At this moment, only she and Han Fei were left. Han Fei saw water rippling around Yukaling's ears. She seemed to be trying to resist the power of the Great Way's 9 sounds. However, how could she resist the Great Way's 9 sounds just by blocking her hearing? Han Fei and Yukaling attacked the last person who had gone crazy almost at the same time. Poochie. Crack. When the last person died in anger, Yukaling suddenly clutched her head and screamed. Han Fei turned around and quickly stepped into the air, rushing at the Fish Dragon King while shouting, "Let's go. There's an ambush here." Han Fei ignored Yukaling. How should he put it? This woman was probably one of the few types of sea demons, and she was also the kind that was quite serious. If it weren't for the fact that their positions were different, Han Fei didn't think he would have attacked her. At this moment, she must have fallen into the sound of fear. He didn't know what she was thinking. When Han Fei glanced at her for the last time, he found that the girl was trembling all over and looked very frightened. The Fish Dragon King had never seen such a scene before. In terms of fighting, he didn't think he was a coward. However, since he entered the 1,000-mountain ancient realm, all kinds of strange things had happened to him. There was a woman who could control souls on the Shuamu heaven side. With a point of her finger, one of his people would explode, which was really creepy. Now, he hadn't even seen the shadow of the enemy, but a few dead birds and a melody. He was surprised to find that all the thugs around him had been wiped out. Besides, the Fish Dragon King felt that there was a sense of irritation in his heart that he couldn't suppress anymore. However, Han Fei's roar woke him up. Don't be in a daze. Get to the bottom of the sea. Top. Chapter 12:26. The Fish Dragon King was dragged to the bottom of the sea by Han Fei, mainly because he couldn't bear the blow in such a short time. He wanted to say, it's not that the enemy is too strong, but that I don't see the enemy at all. How can I fight him? But no matter what, Yu Hanjiao was the only one left among the people he had brought. Yu Kaling, who killed the traitor just now, seemed to have been hit too. Looking at Han Fei's bloodshot eyes, the Ichthyosaur King was touched. He shouted, "Don't worry, I will not allow such a ridiculous thing to happen again. As long as we can get out of here safely, I will send you to the capital." However, Han Fei didn't even bother to talk to him. He pretended to be fighting against something, and the Fish Dragon King narrowed his eyes solemnly, ready to attack Han Fei at any time. In fact, Han Fei was talking to the old turtle. How about it? When can you kill Yu Hanjia? The old turtle was dumbfounded. Wait, it's been less than half an hour since you last asked me. Are you in such a hurry? Han Fei thought to himself, I still have a lot of things to do. You can't expect me to take such a burden with me. Can I? How about I cripple him first? At worst, I won't kill him. The old turtle said helplessly. Okay, as long as you are happy. By the way, can you extract his soul memories? Although this technique is not particularly brilliant, ordinary venerables can't do it. Han Fei nodded. I can. The old turtle couldn't help but feel a little guilty. This kid is too independent and decisive. He knew very well that even if he killed the Fish Dragon King now, it wouldn't be a big deal. He would just go out and not pretend to be the Fish Dragon King anymore. However, he could do whatever he wanted in the Thousand Mountains ancient realm. He could kill as he pleased as the Ichthyosaur King. After he went out, he wouldn't pretend to be the Fish Dragon King anymore. Sure enough, Han Fei muttered, Old turtle, what do you think of that Yu Hong just now? He doesn't look weak at all. The old turtle said helplessly, Let's go with this guy. Don't you think he's a bit stupid? Han Fei's tone immediately changed. Hey, what do you mean? You're calling me stupid, aren't you? The old turtle snorted. Do as you see fit. However, it's best not to kill this person. You can cripple him and hide him. Your gourd space is such a good place. Han Fei snorted. Just for him? Do you know how much spirit spring I need to consume if I want to bring a living person into that space? According to the difference in strength, the degree of exhaustion will also be different. The old tortoise said slowly, Isn't he crippled? Han Fei hiss. Han Fei gasped. The old turtle's words gave him a very special idea. Yes, why couldn't he destroy the Fish Dragon King first, and then pull him into Forge the Universe? This way, not only would he not have to kill the Ichthyosaur King immediately, he could even take over his identity. Oh no, I can replace the identity of everyone below my realm. Han Fei was silent for a long time before he slowly said, Sure enough, old turtles are still more ruthless. What a talent. Yu Hanjia, how do you feel? The Ichthyosaur King held the harpoon in his hand. He felt that something was wrong with Han Fei. Maybe like Yu Kaling, he was eroded by that weird voice. Even he was almost affected just now. And that was because he was far away. If he were closer, the consequences would be unimaginable. Han Fei had killed more than one explorer with the Great Tao's 9 sounds, together with punishing saber and water luster. This kind of weird and terrifying voice might really be a kind of Tao. How could a peak-level sea spirit like the Ichthyosaur King resist it? Whoosh! Suddenly, Han Fei's body straightened and he stood up straight. The Ichthyosaur King instantly took out his spear and pressed it against Han Fei's neck, saying coldly, Are you still in your right mind? Han Fei pretended to be surprised and said, Master Dragon King, what are you doing? Let's talk nicely. Why don't you put down your weapon? Seeing that Han Fei's face was clear and the scarlet eyes had disappeared, The Ichthyosaur king proudly moved the spear away and said, "I thought you were also confused by that voice. Since you're not confused, just go." Although we were ambushed this time, it also proves that only the strong can survive in such an extremely harsh and dangerous environment. The Ichthyosaur king forcibly found an excuse for himself. After all, he still didn't understand why he had run into all these Beastrous starts. Han Fei said in surprise, "Yukaling, should we go and help her?" At this moment, in their perception, Yukaling was 100 kilometers away, in a state of panic, being attacked by a group of immortal bird corpses. Even though she had a battle suit and a purple sand eel to protect her, she was still covered with wounds at this moment. The Ichthyosaur king glanced in Yukaling's direction, gritted his teeth, and said, "Don't wait for her. That blood demon, heavenly talent, may still be hiding there. Maybe he wants you to go back and rescue her. As the saying goes, the enemy is in the dark while we are in the light. It's not a good time to take action now. This is my experience." With that, the Ichthyosaur king turned around and was about to go in another direction. At the moment he turned around, the Ichthyosaur king was so shocked that he didn't have time to summon his companion spirit. The space behind him suddenly lengthened. He activated the closed distance technique and forcibly sent himself out. Huh? Han Fei was slightly taken aback. Although he was surprised by the Ichthyosaur king's perception of danger, how could a peak-level sea spirit get rid of him? With a twist of the void, Han Fei appeared directly behind the Ichthyosaur king. Smack! Han Fei slapped the Ichthyosaur king's shoulder. Without any delay, he released all the void lines at this moment, buckling the Ichthyosaur king's soul. However, as Han Fei expected, the void lines couldn't shake this Ichthyosaur king. And the moment the void lines buckled, Han Fei felt a quaint aura coming at him. Huh! At that moment, there was a dragon roar, and a dragon shadow appeared in Han Fei's eyes. Dragon King bloodline? At that moment, Han Fei unhurriedly stepped on a concealment array. Immediately afterward, he activated the 100-beast soul-suppressing roar. At that moment, hundreds of beasts roared and stomped on the void. The dragon shadow was shattered in one fell swoop, and the Ichthyosaur king's eyes burst with blood. Han Fei turned his hand and stabbed out, directly smashing the Ichthyosaur king's dantian. "Ah, you Han?" Han Fei sneered. Since he had already attacked, he wouldn't hold back. Like a butcher dismembering an ox, Han Fei swung the blood-drinking knife in his hand and blood splashed. The Ichthyosaur king's spiritual heritage had been cut off by him. At this point, the void lines forcibly buckled the Ichthyosaur king, sucking its vitality. In just a few seconds, the Ichthyosaur king's whole body turned a circle, overflowing with death energy. By Bay Royal City, a heavenly talent ranked 10th on the heavenly talent list, couldn't even resist for 1 second, and was directly disabled. Han Fei smiled and scanned Yukaling with his perception, only to find that Yukaling was also seriously injured, and the purple sand eel was almost torn apart. Han Fei thought, "Girl, don't blame me for this. People of different principles can't make plans together. Bye-bye." Han Fei's figure disappeared into the bottom of the sea. When he reappeared, he had already dragged the crippled Ichthyosaur king into Forge the Universe. The Ichthyosaur king's eyebrows flickered as if calling his companion spirit. Han Fei looked down at the Ichthyosaur king, who was limp on the ground, and said, "Hey, you still want to summon your companion spirit at this time? Although it's just a thought, your demonic heritage has been cut off, the demonic energy in your body is chaotic, your dantian is destroyed, and your soul is injured. Can you summon it out? It's okay. Go on, I'll wait." The Ichthyosaur king's eyes widened, and his face was full of disbelief. Didn't this person just save me? Why is he going to kill me in the blink of an eye? Why is he so strong? And what the hell is this place? Han Fei first glanced at the Ichthyosaur king, and then saw his body began to change, his bones began to change, and his face became blurred, turning into the Ichthyosaur king. "You!" Shameless, Han Fei curled up the corners of his mouth, took out the Ichthyosaur king's sun-moon shell, scanned it with his spiritual power, and suddenly smiled. He really underestimated the Ichthyosaur king. In this guy's sun moon shell, there were more than 2,000 spiritual fruits, more than 300,000 caddies of spiritual spring, 200,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid, a pile of various materials, a dozen sets of sea demon combat skills, and even a spare high-quality divine weapon. TSK. Dragon King, let's be honest. You're the richest person I've ever robbed. Of course, you can't be compared with the Trading Valley in Iceberg City. I'm not exaggerating at all. Your net worth is comparable to that of a Tao-seeking state cultivator. The Ichthyosaur King's face was ferocious, and he felt a chill in his heart. This person brought a deep fear to his heart. He had never been so afraid of a person. From the first time he saw him, Han Fei had been acting. The other party was clearly so powerful that he could have easily killed him, but he was able to hide it from the world until now, holding back his anger. The Ichthyosaur King struggled and moved on the ground, staring at Han Fei with his two bloody eyes. "Who are you?" "Ha!" The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up, and he said with a faint smile, "Me. You've mentioned me more than once, remember?" A surprised expression appeared on the Ichthyosaur King's face. "When the *CK did I mention you? I don't even know you, okay?" Han Fei shrugged and said, "Okay, I don't have time to talk to you. I still have a lot of things to do. By the way, my name is Han Fei from Shuemu Heaven." Chapter 12:27. The Fish Dragon King looked at Han Fei incredulously. "Is this Han Fei? Isn't that Han Fei a human being? How did he become a half-mermaid?" However, when the Fish Dragon King saw that Han Fei had changed into his own appearance, he couldn't accept it. From the very beginning, this Han Fei had been preparing to replace him, hadn't he? The Fish Dragon King roared. "What the hell do you want to do? You can't kill me. You Wendao and Gue Sanxing won't be stupid enough to think that you are me." Han Fei chuckled. "So both of them have to die." The Fish Dragon King's body twitched. Is Han Fei crazy? He has just finished his tribulation, and now he's ready to kill half-mermaid? However, when it thought that Han Fei just finished his tribulation, he didn't even consolidate his power, but directly sneaked into the Ice God Gorge. Such a crazy move. How strong must he be to do such a thing? Han Fei smiled gently. "Don't move. Let me see your soul first." The Fish Dragon King. Outside Forge the Universe. Han Fei, the brand new Fish Dragon King, appeared on the bottom of the sea with a spear in his hand. Han Fei didn't look very surprised, because he saw the Sea Demon King City, a real underwater city. It was like a human town with buildings, shops, streets, and all kinds of trial secret realms. Not only that, Han Fei finally knew why the sea demons he saw all yearned for the King City. But no one knew the reason at all, because the so-called King City only had heavenly talents. In the Sea Demon King City, the worst demonic heritage was a level 6 demonic heritage. And the reason why there was a level 6 demonic heritage was because the sea demon race always needed some people whose strength was between the strong and the weak. The biggest function of these people was to follow a certain strong master. However, unlike the Yin-Yang Heaven or the Waterwood Heaven, how many human beings, including the Insect Clan and the Sky Clan, could really reach a level 6 demonic heritage? Every one of them was cultivated with great efforts. But the Sea Clan was different. They controlled the entire sea and had awakened billions of creatures. Some people were responsible for searching the 4 seas just to find those who were also talented. This made Han Fei feel pressure, because according to the information he read, there were a lot of people in the King City, probably as many as 100,000. Thinking of this, Han Fei's eyes turned cold. He was now more and more worried about the battle on the Yin-Yang Heaven side. He stood there proudly, his eyes narrowed, and he had an air of superiority. As Han Fei scanned with his divine senses, he found that Yukaling was gone, and the sea was still rolling. There must have been a big battle there. Han Fei didn't care at all. Yukaling's life and death didn't affect him at all. However, Han Fei didn't notice that Lan Shuer, who should have died in the ice, also disappeared. Xiao! Han Fei rushed out quickly, aiming at the mountain where the heavenly vine was. Having lived in the 100,000 mountains for so long, Han Fei knew how to get along with spiritual plants. At this moment on the mountain peak, 7 or 8 women dressed in red were fighting, and their enemy was a patch of greenish-purple brambles. Among the brambles, there was a large purple-black man-eating flower. Hiss, hiss, thousands of black stamens stretched out of the man-eating flower's mouth. Moreover, there were a lot of man-eating flowers surrounding him. Instantly, the sky was filled with black pistils. Squeak, a woman shouted, "Curse-killing technique." Hum. The 7 or 8 women in red were murmuring something. Han Fei didn't know what they were singing. However, just like how the girls spat out lotus flowers, strings of strange rune-like symbols appeared. Those curses turned into shadows of sea demons, humans, insects, and so on, fighting with the thorn demon plants. Han Fei's perception had already seen it clearly. At this moment, he couldn't help but ask in surprise, "What kind of demonic art is this?" The old turtle said, "There are many ways of fighting in this world. In addition to the 5 major professions, fishing, weapons, and so on, there are also curses. There's also a kind of curse technique. For example, the majestic mystic spell that I left behind in my early years is actually a kind of curse technique. If you have a relationship with certain existences, you can borrow the power of that existence. Or you can borrow the power of that kind of law or great way." Han Fei was a little surprised. "Curse? Can it block my punch?" "Humph," the old turtle said disdainfully. "As long as you cultivate to a high level, every kind of spell is extremely terrifying. Curse can kill the enemy thousands of kilometers away, and you can use the momentum of the Great Way to give yourself strength several times greater than your own. This kind of spell is simple. It's nothing more than summoning the remnant souls of some creatures that once existed here through a common curse." Han Fei took a look. Sure enough, those summoned shadows didn't seem to be very strong. They just had some simple combat characteristics. Han Fei curled his lips. "Can they be used to fight?" The old turtle said, "Keep watching." Han Fei didn't rush to attack, but just observed for a while. Then he discovered, to his surprise, that the blood demons were injecting strength into the bodies of those living creatures nonstop. Han Fei wondered, where does the power come from? The old turtle said, "This is the power of curse. Through sacrifice, summoning, and spells that coincide with the Great Way, it can endow the summoned with power to fight for itself." Han Fei only saw that the summoned shadows could use combat skills. Some human soul warriors even burst out shadowless arrows and bombarded a large area of thorns and man-eating flowers. Besides, those blood demons didn't only know curse techniques. Red leaves floated out of the blood demons' bodies. The red leaves were like fire. They were the leaves of the 10,000-year-old big red trunk. Among these leaves, there was always a strange-shaped weapon like a red leaf, like a flying knife, which would surround these blood demons. Whether it was the weapon or the attack method, Han Fei had never heard of them. This group of people went all the way up with an irresistible force. A large number of insects and undead creatures appeared along the way, but they were all strangled by the weapons around them. Those demonic plants were mostly strangled by the flying red leaves and the summoned shadows. This kind of means and power was no worse than the 5 major professions of human beings or sea demons. They didn't even need to do anything themselves. In short, these blood demons from the Blood Sea Divine would give Han Fei the feeling that they were a group of women who didn't need to fight, but only needed to talk. However, after pondering for a long time, Han Fei said leisurely, "It seems that they can't take a punch from me." The old turtle was speechless at Han Fei's logic. This wasn't even a type of combat. Did he have to measure it with his fists? On the mountain, black shadows suddenly shuttled through the clouds. Smack! A rotten black vine hacked down from the sky. The terrifying vine finally extracted a stream of black gas from the void. Not good. It's an ancient heavenly vine. A red blood mark opened between the eyebrows of the leading blood demon, and a sword mark cut out from between his eyebrows. Puff! 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 The huge heavenly vine suddenly exploded, and the air was dirty, full of black smoke and some filthy gray-black liquid. Han Fei frowned. Is this heavenly vine alive or dead? Whether dead or alive, The combat power of this heavenly vine seemed to be much weaker than before. Although the blow just now was still very strong, it didn't make sense for it to be shattered so easily by a peak-level sea spirit. If green vine was in its normal state, it could at least kill half of the blood demons with a single slap, even if it couldn't kill all of them. Han Fei decided not to wait any longer. With a swish, he disappeared on the spot. On the other side, the blood demons who had turned into a group of red-clothed beauties were about to continue to ascend. The leading woman suddenly looked at the void, let out a scream, and swept a red leaf-shaped blade at the void. Clang! In the twisted void clouds, a palm stretched out, with 2 fingers clamping the red leaf. An arrogant voice floated in the air. What was it? It turned out to be just a weapon similar to a knife wheel. Ha! Can it be used as a weapon? Let go. The leaf knife will burst into raging flames, bursting with a strange temperature, and strange spells broke out, as if trying to activate this weapon. However, Han Fei stretched out another hand, clasped the weapon with both hands, and suddenly exerted force. Gotcha! The leaf knife wheel, which was at least a divine weapon, was broken by Han Fei with his bare hands. At this moment, the 7 or 8 blood demons' expressions changed drastically. Breaking a divine weapon with bare hands? Who is this person? Chilla. As the clouds dissipated, the arrogant image of the Fish Dragon King appeared in the vision of these blood demons. Fish Dragon King? Just now, when Han Fei attacked the Fish Dragon King, he was still a certain distance from the mountain. Not all peak-level sea spirits had a large perception range, so these villains didn't see the Fish Dragon King and Han Fei. The most they knew was that a big battle broke out not far from them just now. That was all. At this moment, seeing the Fish Dragon King that Han Fei incarnated, their expressions changed drastically, and a leading woman shouted, soul-sealing curse. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Han Fei had already seen someone chanting, and strange runes were coming out of his mouth. But Han Fei was not a fool. His speed was faster than the Fish Dragon King, or even much faster. How could he give others a chance to react? Puff! Han Fei didn't know the instant mystic spear, but he knew a little about Zhang Xuanyu's instant mystic spear. In the blink of an eye, the spear pierced through a blood demon, killing him on the spot. Swish! 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 Poke! Poke! Although Han Fei's spear skills were not good, he was fast. In the blink of an eye, 6 of the 8 blood demons died, stabbed to death by his instant mystic spear. The other 2, including the leading one, were released by Han Fei on his own initiative. In the end, Han Fei laughed aloud. A bunch of women want to compete with me for opportunities? Who do you think you are? Go and find the strong masters of your clans. Han Fei roared wildly and domineeringly, and the 2 blood demons who escaped were filled with fury. One of them said, Zia, why didn't we use the illusionary demonic sound just now? The leading man shook his head with a dark face. It's useless. He can reach the 10th place on the heavenly talent list of the Bai Royal City. He won't be trapped in an illusion so easily. However, this person is too arrogant. Let's go and find Ruyun and the others. After killing the blood demons, Han Fei stood on the mountainside, looking at the thorny purple vines that were pouncing at him. Han Fei frowned and shouted, Where is the fairy? I am Wang Han, the first disciple of the 100,000 Mountains. Does anyone still remember Wang Han? As soon as the word fairy came out, the endless thorny purple vines suddenly paused. Above the sky, 2 long vines fell quickly, but they didn't slash but just fell. Second, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1228. Because Han Fei didn't make a move, the thorn's purple vines and venom-eating flowers didn't attack him. The undead Zergs, on the other hand, were moving restlessly with their broken bodies. They had surrounded Han Fei and seemed to be ready to devour him at any time. However, to Han Fei's surprise, those purple vines clasped the blood demons that Han Fei had just killed and dragged them together. Then, in the fog, the heavenly vines were trembling and rotten roots stretched out from the ground. These roots directly plunged into the bodies of the red demons. Their bodies quickly withered at a speed visible to the naked eye, and in the blink of an eye, they were sucked dry. Han Fei had a bad feeling. Has this heavenly vine become a real, evil creature and begun to devour flesh and blood? Swish! Two black vines stretched out from the fog. When Han Fei saw the black, decaying vines up close, his face suddenly darkened. This space was not an illusion, but a brand new world like the underground city. There should be more than just undead creatures here. Suddenly, in his mind, the old turtle's voice sounded. This vine seems to have a little vitality. Han Fei's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? This vine is alive? The old turtle said, yes, it's alive, but its vitality is pitifully low. Otherwise, a peak-level sea spirit wouldn't have cut a whole vine into pieces just now. Han Fei asked, how did it become like this? The old turtle said, you just came to this space. How do you know? However, I keep feeling that there's something not quite right about this space. Including you, your vitality is slowly disappearing. It's just that the speed of loss is very, very slow. Han Fei suddenly took a breath and said, I don't feel it. The old turtle said, it shows that your strength is still low. The little vine in front of you is just decaying, but there should be a trace of vitality in it, but not much. Just now, although these people died, their flesh and blood are still fresh, and even their souls are in chaos. The essence of life is still there, so it can provide a glimmer of vitality for this little vine. Han Fei's face became extremely ugly. Has this world become so poor? There was not enough spiritual qi, not much energy, and a lack of vitality. At this moment, the big rotten vine slowly fell to Han Fei's side. Then, Han Fei saw a scene that made him not know whether to laugh or cry. This scene even made Han Fei feel a little sad. He saw that on the thick, rotten vine, there were actually a few sprouts growing out. This comical scene was very shocking from afar. A huge vine more than 1,000 meters long seemed to be crushing Han Fei, but it actually stopped half a meter in front of Han Fei. Seeing this scene, Han Fei was about to stretch out his hand, when the thorn's purple vines rioted and the undead insects hissed, as if warning Han Fei not to do anything. Han Fei said, don't panic. I'm not a sea demon. With that said, Han Fei roared and his body began to change, turning into a big ape. Whether it was a human or a siren, it would eventually develop into a human form. On the other hand, the Beast King technique was just a simple transformation technique, which was different from the evolution technique. The evolution technique seemed to completely turn one into a sea demon. With the help of the art of deception, one could basically turn into any sea demon whose strength was no stronger than one's. However, the Beast King technique was a transformation technique. No matter how realistic it was just a disguise, not real. Sure enough, when Han Fei turned into a big ape, the thorn's purple vines and the undead insects began to stir. Even though their souls were lost, they were shocked by Han Fei's sudden change. Han Fei said, I am Wang Han, the first disciple of the four supremes of the 100,000 mountains. Then Han Fei stretched out his fingers again. There are many ways to communicate with spiritual plants. Some spiritual plants could directly show human faces, some spiritual plants could grow fruits to speak for themselves, and some spiritual plants could speak through the body of other creatures, and the heavenly vine was one of the more special ones. It was like a silent guardian, without a face, and communicated through consciousness. Therefore, when Han Fei stretched out his hand, those tender leaves directly wrapped Han Fei's hand. In fact, if it were in the past, it wouldn't have been so troublesome. He only needed to press his hand on the heavenly vine to communicate. The heavenly red hibiscus was difficult to communicate with, and the most annoying one was the 9-headed snake grass. Sure enough, when the tender leaves wrapped Han Fei's hand, a voice immediately appeared in Han Fei's mind. Who are you? Han Fei said telepathically, I am Wang Han, the water deity, the beast king, the Tianqing venerable, and the giant king are all my masters. After a long time, the voice said, I've never heard of you. Han Fei asked, have you heard of Shimin Linglan? After a long time, the heavenly vine, said, Shemin Venerable is 20,000 years older than me. Are you the same generation as Shemin Venerable? Han Fei. Han Fei was shocked. Shemin Linglan was 20,000 years older than the heavenly vine? Han Fei took a deep breath and said, Are you saying that Shemin Linglan had already died 20,000 years before you? How did she die? The heavenly vine responded subconsciously, I don't know. I only heard that Shemin Venerable led the Avenger to launch a battle. Then, he never came back. At that time, the 100,000 mountains were divided, and he was too busy to take care of himself. This is what Master Green Lotus said. Hiss. Han Fei took a deep breath and asked, Is Green Lotus still alive? I know her. She fought for me. The heavenly vine paused for a long time. Who are you? How do you know Master Green Lotus? Master Green Lotus was born in the Age of Doom. Han Fei thought for a moment and said, Would you believe me if I said I crossed the river of time? Han Fei felt that the heavenly vine's huge body was trembling. The heavenly vine seemed to remember something and hurriedly asked, You are that person? You are that person? Han Fei was dumbfounded. Which person? The heavenly vine seemed a little excited. It said, Master Green Lotus mentioned it once. There is a magnificent person who crossed the river of time and ruled the world for 50,000 years. Was it you? Han Fei was stunned. Am I so awesome? How did I rule the world for 50,000 years? Han Fei immediately responded, So, is Green Lotus still alive? Han Fei clearly felt a trace of sadness, and the heavenly vine said, Master Green Lotus dedicated her life to the fairy. Maybe she has died. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. Just when he was feeling sad, he was shocked. What did you say? What do you mean that Green Lotus dedicated her life to the fairy? The heavenly vine trembled slightly. The fairy is still alive. She hasn't died yet. Han Fei gasped hard. How long has it been? Is the water fairy still alive? How many tens of thousands of years has it been? This heavenly vine was born 20,000 years later than Shemin Linglan. Then, there is something about setting the cauldron for 50,000 years in the future. God knows how many years had passed since I was still around. Han Fei was shocked and overjoyed. Where is she? Where is she? The heavenly vine trembled and said, The fairy is on the Divine Child Peak. Do you know the Divine Child Peak? The fairy is in a very, very bad state. Although she sealed this world with her own strength, she has already fallen into a deep sleep because of the lack of spiritual energy and energy. We can only sacrifice our vitality to ensure that the fairy doesn't die. The old turtle suddenly said in surprise, Boy, have you really traveled through the river of time? The old turtle suddenly asked in surprise, Boy, have you really traveled through the river of time? However, Han Fei frowned and frowned. Lack of vitality? So, this is the reason why there are so many undead creatures in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm? Han Fei was about to ask for more information when the heavenly vine said, Someone is coming. Han Fei suddenly opened his eyes and scanned with his senses, only to see that 5 or 6 half-mermaids were coming at him from behind. Of course, they sensed Han Fei, but Han Fei was still a big ape at this moment. How did these half-mermaids know him? They thought they had a fortuitous encounter. Han Fei turned around, twisted his body, twisted the void, and knocked the embroidery needle on the head of a half-mermaid with a thud. Bam! Its whole body was blown up by Han Fei's terrifying power. At that moment, the other 5 roared, Retreat! To their horror, they discovered a fact. This strange creature was too fast. It was so fast that they couldn't react at all. However, the void lines had already stretched out and caught the 3 of them in an instant. 2 of them felt that they were too slow, so instead of escaping, they chose to fuse with their associate spirits. In the end, there was only a series of bang, bang, bang sounds, and the 2 of them were directly smashed into a pool of mud. They were only peak-level sea spirits. How could they resist the terrifying power of 200 waves of physical strength? Not to mention 10 strikes. They would have been beaten half to death if they were hit once or twice by Han Fei. Han Fei's body quickly changed into the appearance of the fish dragon king again, and he sent these people back to the vine. Here's your vitality. I'm going to the divine child peak. However, the tender leaves of the heavenly vine stretched out to Han Fei and fell on Han Fei. Only then did it say, "Give it all to the fairy." Han Fei grinned. "Don't worry. Most of the sea demons that came in today will become sacrifices. Your vitality is seriously lacking. Take a good rest first. I'll take care of the rest." As if touched by Han Fei, the heavenly vine fell silent for a moment, and then countless roots extended to the bodies of the sea demons. It seemed to see hope. Third, asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1229. Han Fei had never expected that he would accidentally find the real location of the 100,000 mountains. However, why would the 100,000 mountains end up in the waterwood heaven? In other words, in the era he had lived in, the 36 days had not yet been divided. Was that why the 100,000 mountains could be found in the yin-yang heaven and the waterwood heaven? The old turtle said, "Kid, are you bragging? Did you really travel through the river of time? Why? Is there a problem?" "Humph," the old turtle said. "What you said is too mysterious. Even I, the emperor, can use powerful techniques to cross the river of time. However, there's no way to interact with people from different times, let alone acknowledge a master." Han Fei curled his lips and said, "Don't think you know everything just because you used to be an emperor. There are still many secrets that you don't know." The old turtle didn't refute. Instead, he said in a low voice, "Although I don't know what kind of opportunity you had in the past, I don't know. However, you need to be careful when you're looking for that fairy." The old turtle said, "According to Xiao Tong, this person has definitely become a king. However, even if one became a king, under normal circumstances, they would not be able to protect a world for tens of thousands of years. If there really was such a world, the kings of the waterwood heaven wouldn't just sit back and watch. Therefore, the world you see now should be that fairy's original body." Under some extreme circumstances, she tried in vain to split open the sky. Unfortunately, her strength was insufficient, so she forcefully swallowed the real world. In the end, her body turned into this world, containing an incomplete world. But now, it is equivalent to a half-dead sky swallowing shell, and it should have no consciousness. Wait a minute. What did you say? Then you say she has already become a king? The world we're in is your original body? That's right, the old turtle said. How do you think Sea Expansion Realm came about? Kings created their own world sea. This was the Sea Expansion Realm. However, sea opening is not enough. Heaven and earth complement each other. The great Tao is yin and yang. If there is sea opening, there will be heaven opening. Only then will heaven and earth be formed. After saying that, the old turtle said in a deep voice, "If you want to use vitality to awaken a king that is extremely lacking in vitality, 10 drops of the water of the spring of life won't be enough. Why don't you get some people and let her try swallowing them?" Han Fei was stunned. "How the hell am I supposed to steal 10 drops of the spring of life?" "Old tortoise, do you think the Life Queen knows that there are kings in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm?" asked Han Fei. The old turtle hummed. "Of course I know. She wasn't the only one who knew. The king of the oceanic race knew as well. However, they couldn't enter. They couldn't find this person's location through an entrance. Furthermore, the reason why the number of people was limited to around 5,000 was to prevent this person from awakening and devouring all of them in one go, realizing his true return. 5,000 people and the resources they have shouldn't be enough to revive a king." Han Fei took a deep breath. The Life Queen is not with the fairy. He was unable to confirm this point. Who knew what would happen after the Age of Chaos? He himself did not know that he had only stayed in that era for a few short decades. Han Fei thought, should I go to Shu Xiao Man? Swish, swish. When Han Fei quickly flew across the sky, he perceived that at least 20 places were being explored. He saw that a member of the Sky Clan had pulled out a green sword leaf from the rotten branches and leaves of a 1,000-sword banana. Immediately, Han Fei frowned. The Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm had been reduced to such a state. Did the Life Queen and the sea demons still want to send people to take the precious materials here? The so-called precious materials were very common in the 100,000 Mountains. Once, when the Giant King taught him the 100 Battles divine hammer, he said to him, "As long as you work hard, you will have enough materials." The materials that the Giant King referred to were not just the bones of sea demons, but also the mines in the 100,000 Mountains and the precious materials of various spiritual plants that had fallen and could produce continuously. For example, on a mountain far away, the 1,000-sword banana that the Sky Clan pulled out had a jade heart sword that grew every 100 years. After 100 years, if nobody took it away, the jade sword would become one of the special sword leaves of the 1,000-sword banana. The more special sword leaves there were, the higher the cultivation of the 1,000-sword banana. In Han Fei's memory, he seemed to have seen a 1,000-sword banana with 72 special sword leaves. This meant that the 1,000-sword banana had lived for at least 7,200 years. Han Fei hadn't dealt with the 1,000-sword banana himself, but he had dealt with the heaven-splitting sword hemp. When the water goddess was teaching him, she once let the heaven-splitting sword hemp attack Han Fei. Han Fei had poked holes all over its body, which was extremely dangerous. However, the sound of the two big birds talking came to Han Fei's ears. One of them said, "It's a pity. According to my sister, when she came last time, this 1,000-sword banana hadn't fallen yet. But this time, it seems to have fallen for decades." The other said, "Alas, not only this one has fallen, but more than 20 of them have fallen on this mountain. Let's pick them all. Anyway, we can't let them fall into the hands of the sea demons." Phew, hearing this, Han Fei let out a long breath of relief. Are they picking the fallen 1,000-sword banana? Han Fei was still thinking, the major clans in the 100,000 Mountains are all very close to me. If the Life Queen also wants to kick me when I'm down, what should I do? At least, I will definitely be vigilant against the Life Queen and be careful. Now, knowing that they were only going to take the treasures of the fallen creatures, Han Fei was relieved. He scanned again. 500 kilometers away, some sea demons were attacking a patch of purple bamboo and red-bellied spiders. Among them, some were quite strong and had already killed dozens of spiders. Of course, the entire mountain was full of spiders. It would not be easy for them to rush up and get the treasures. However, since he had encountered them, he would just kill them along the way. This was impossible. A sea demon shouted, "All of you, attack with all your might. Fighting for the treasures is not the key. Let's all disperse." At that time, the treasure hunting battle will also be a hunting battle. Hunting is far faster than looking for treasures on our own. As soon as this person finished speaking, with a swish, a figure appeared in their perception. In an instant, everyone's spirits were lifted. "Huh, it's the Fish Dragon King. Why is he here alone?" Someone said, "Such a heavenly talent always does what he wants. He probably doesn't like to be followed, right?" Someone wondered, "Why is he coming towards us?" When Han Fei was within 100 kilometers, someone said, "Greetings, Master Dragon King." Han Fei grunted and didn't slow down. In the blink of an eye, he had passed 50 or 60 kilometers. Before they realized what was going on, Han Fei had already arrived. At this moment, the red-bellied spiders surrounded them. Those people were standing, wondering, what does the Fish Dragon King mean? Does he also need the treasures here? Han Fei held the spear in his hand, glanced at the people who were fighting, and shook his head slightly. "Goodbye. Swish Poochie BM." Almost in an instant, these sea demons were directly stabbed to death by Han Fei before they could even react. They probably didn't expect that a powerhouse ranked 10th on the heavenly talent list in the royal city would suddenly attack them. Even those red-bellied spiders were dumbfounded. What's going on? Internal strife? However, these spiders immediately realized that Han Fei might be a more terrifying person. When they were about to attack, they saw the void in front of Han Fei twist. Immediately afterward, Han Fei was gone. It only took half an hour for Han Fei to clean up as many as 50 half-mermaids and blood demons. However, Han Fei was quite generous this time. He didn't take any of their sea-swallowing seashells. Instead, he casually scattered all the resources that they had on them. According to the old turtle, if this world itself was the water fairy, then these resources were actually left to her. Besides, as soon as the people he was hunting entered the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, they were directly attracted by some mountains at the outermost edge. This kind of insight couldn't make it to the top. Although the Fish Dragon King seemed a bit impulsive to rush in as soon as he came in, it didn't mean that he was wrong. However, Han Fei's understanding was different. You've just entered a strange place, so you should at least know what this place is. What are the rules? At this moment, he had wasted a bit of time and gotten rid of some short-sighted people. Han Fei stepped in the void and adjusted his direction with his body's instinctive reaction. With a swish, he flew out. Han Fei didn't care about other people's gazes at all when he flew. He was flying fast in the appearance of the Fish Dragon King. The Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm wasn't as large as he imagined. There were always some people on the way. A member of the Sky Clan saw Han Fei and immediately chattered. Isn't he the heavenly talent of the Sea Clan? Come on, chase him and see where he is going. At the bottom of the sea, a blood demon was surprised. The Fish Dragon King? Why is he alone? This is a good opportunity. If I can hunt this person, my strength will definitely improve greatly. A human being saw Han Fei and immediately frowned. This person seems to be a heavenly talent from the Bai Bei royal city. There was also a clam girl who seemed to be somewhat familiar with the Fish Dragon King. She was leading a dozen people to climb a mountain with unique bumps. On the surface of the sea, withered seaweeds were sweeping at them overwhelmingly. On the mountain, cones occasionally appeared and attacked them. Not only that, two of them seemed to have fallen into illusions and were going crazy. Shui Hongyan. Han Fei frowned. Isn't she one of the heavenly talents who are at odds with the Fish Dragon King? After reading The Fish Dragon King's Soul, Han Fei learned that Shui Hongyan ranked 12th on the heavenly talent list in the royal city. Within 3 years, she had risen from 18th to 12th. Hey, kill her first. Chapter 1230. As the saying went, heavenly talents fought against each other, each more arrogant than the other. When Shui Hongyan saw Han Fei, her whole aura rose. She was thinking, should I attack the Fish Dragon King? However, it was obviously not a good time to attack. If the Fish Dragon King was seriously injured, she would definitely attack. Even if she couldn't kill it, she would be willing to kick it when it was down. But at this moment, although the Fish Dragon King didn't bring anyone with him, he didn't seem to be in a bad state at all. Although she didn't think highly of the Fish Dragon King, she hated this guy who was arrogant for no reason because of his Dragon King bloodline. But when it came to fighting, she really didn't have the confidence to defeat the Fish Dragon King at all. Unless Yuhong was also here, there might be a little hope if the two of them joined forces. As for the followers around her, to be honest, they were just cannon fodder. It was impossible for them to stop the Fish Dragon King in his peak state. However, what Shui Hongyan didn't know was that the talented and powerful Fish Dragon King in her eyes had been crippled by Han Fei before he could even summon his companion spirit. At this moment, he was still lying in Forge the Universe, moaning. This was unbelievable. When Han Fei saw Shui Hongyan, he felt that he had seen a pile of treasures. Unfortunately, these treasures had to be left to this world. Creatures like the Clam Girl always felt like they had their own space. After they died, their shells would turn into a space. How could she not have a lot of resources when she was a character with her own space? Now, apart from seeing the water fairy, what Han Fei wanted to see most was this kind of ATM. Of course, he wouldn't let go of this opportunity. Therefore, just when Shui Hongyan thought that Han Fei would fly over, Han Fei rushed at her with a swoosh. Shui Hongyan's face suddenly changed. Fish Dragon King, do you think you could defeat me alone? Don't forget, you haven't entered the top 5. It's impossible for you to penetrate my shell. Han Fei grinned. Since we are not in the capital, who can defeat me? The Fish Dragon King? You a clam girl? I order you to hand over your sea-swallowing seashells, and I can spare your lives. Otherwise, you can all die. Many people's faces changed. Someone said, Master Dragon King, this is a secret realm. We are the same clan. How can we kill each other? Han Fei grinned hideously. What are you waiting for? Do you think you're worthy of being called the same race as me, the Fish Dragon King? You are of the same clan as the Fish Dragon King? Everyone's expression changed. How arrogant must he be to raise such a character? Everyone roared, "Let's fight!" Shui Hongyan roared, "Star mark! Star mark!" Spatial rifts appeared one after another. In the blink of an eye, a large white shell appeared in midair. In the blink of an eye, the dragon. Therefore, when he sprinted forward, he not only had to face the cracks in the void, but also the invisible blades. Dragon, star, dragon, star, Q, sh, Si Li, however, Shui, comma, other dragon, sea dragon, the Fei, he dragon, king close Han, fish, dragon, Fei, can, dragon, he see, he to say, with a hum, Han Fei had already appeared in his own camp. With a hum, Han Fei had appeared in his camp. Crack, boom. In the blink of an eye, the three people closest to Han Fei were killed without even having a chance to fight back. Han Fei, who was a peak-level law enforcer, was equally terrifying when facing creatures of the same realm. The Void Lines had only captured 5 people. There were still others who had blocked the Void Lines. If it's not the sea, who are you? Shui Hongyan seemed to be pulling a thread out of the void, fleeing at an extremely fast speed. Han Fei stepped out, and the phantom of mountains and rivers appeared. Punishing Saber, Water Luster, Fire Seed, and Tree Spirit appeared. Because Earth 9 didn't fight, Han Fei didn't call it, which could save some energy. Han Fei chased after him and shouted, "You take care of the rest. You can only use the strength of a peak-level law enforcer." Swish! Han Fei stopped pretending and slashed with the draw technique. The infinity water was condensed in the void and blocked Shui Hongyan's way of escape in only half a second. At this time, Shui Hongyan had already crawled into the shell, and her voice was trembling. "You're not the Fish Dragon King. Who are you exactly?" Han Fei glared at Shui Hongyan ferociously. "Who says I'm not the Fish Dragon King? Don't I look like it?" Clang, clang, clang. Han Fei stepped in the void with his hands behind his back, looking casually at the shell that was being cut by the infinity water crazily. Speaking of which, I've always felt that the clam girls are very strange creatures. Shouldn't you contribute such a powerful shell to build a divine weapon? Han Fei wasn't panicked at all, because the shell couldn't resist the infinity water at all. After a sweep of the million knife art, countless white marks and a crack had appeared on the white shell. Shui Hongyan exclaimed, "Let me go. Since you are not the Fish Dragon King, we have no conflict." When Shui Hongyan shouted, Han Fei sensed that invisible threads were planted in the void around him, trying to control him. He had already experienced this trick in the Sea of Pearls on the Scattered Stars Island. How could he let Shui Hongyan succeed? Han Fei grinned and stretched out his finger. 10,000 knives in one. An exclamation seemed to burst out of the shell. "Wait a minute, clank, kacha." The white shell was cut open by a sword, and the void lines pierced through. Ignoring the resistance of Shui Hongyan's soul, Han Fei began to extract her vitality. "What can I do to make you let me go? We are of the same clan. Why do you have to kill each other?" Han Fei smiled. The void lines were indeed about to be upgraded. Faced with these heavenly talents who had strong souls and probably had secret treasures, the void lines couldn't hit them every time. Of course, he could still steal vitality. Bam! Han Fei stood on the shell, and the spear of the Fish Dragon King pierced through Shui Hongyan. "Who told you that I am of the same clan as you? I, Han Fei, am an orthodox human. My bloodline is so pure that only the mermaid royal family can match it. Who do you think you are?" Without giving Shui Hongyan a chance to self-destruct, the infinity water had already stirred up the shell. When Shui Hongyan was dying, her eyes widened when she heard the name Han Fei. Isn't this the peerless heavenly talent from the Shui Mu Heaven? In the end, she was still a little confused. Why can only the mermaid royal family be comparable to you humans? Ordinary mermaids are already high and mighty, let alone the mermaid royal family? However, she would never have a chance to know. Han Fei scanned with his perception and found that the battle on Punishing Saber side was over. The 5 people he had just controlled with the void lines, but failed to kill, had already been wrapped in his spider cocoons by the red-belly spiders. There were only a dozen of them. Han Fei killed 8 ordinary peak-level sea spirits and Shui Hanyan. Punishing Saber and the others easily killed the rest. At this moment, Han Fei casually threw Shui Hanyan into the purple bamboo forest and shouted, "Red Star Heavenly Bamboo, take this vitality and use it yourself. Recover as soon as possible. I'll find a way to save the fairy." Da-da-da. He heard a lot of bamboo knocking, and a beautiful melody came from the bamboo. Hearing the melody, Han Fei understood the meaning of the Red Star Heavenly Bamboo. "Who are you? Why are you helping me?" Han Fei smiled faintly. "I am Wang Han, the first disciple of the 100,000 Mountains. If you want to know my story, I'll tell you after I save the fairy." After easily killing a group of strong masters, Han Fei rushed out again. After all, there was only one way to the Divine Child Peak. On this way, he would meet some people, but not many. In the 100,000 Mountains, the distance crossed by 1,000 mountains was already very large. When he and Shiman Linglan flew across the 100,000 mountains, it took them a whole day and a night. According to the appearance of the mountains in his memory, Han Fei quickly determined which mountain these mountains belonged to. Based on this, he determined the direction to go. Soon, it only took half an hour for Han Fei to find the Divine Child Peak under the pursuit of a large group of immortal birds. As for those immortal birds, Han Fei could only sigh. What a pity. Compared with demonic plants, races such as humans, orcs, the Sky Clan, and the war giants had a much shorter lifespan. Han Fei remembered that when the water fairy gave him his first lesson, she had already said that demonic plants had a very long lifespan. Before, Han Fei didn't have this concept, but now he did. How long has it been since that era? The water fairy could still survive? This was simply a miracle. The Divine Child Peak was extremely steep, and the wind and rain were everywhere. Even in this world, it was still the same. At this moment, Han Fei stood proudly in the sky, looking at the shadows and the wind and rain, and said, "Nine-headed snake grass, I don't know which era you are from. I'm Wang Han of the 100,000 Mountains. If you haven't heard of my name, let me rephrase it. I'm the water fairy's disciple." Then, Han Fei's body shook slightly, and he tried to twist the void to enter the Divine Child Peak. He couldn't force his way in. Having stayed in 100,000 mountains for so long, Han Fei certainly knew how dangerous the Divine Child Peak was. Well, he couldn't get out of the mist after entering it. However, to Han Fei's surprise, even the Star Passage technique failed. The Divine Child Peak was blocked by an unknown force, and even the space was blocked. The Star Passage technique had lost its effect. Bam! Just as Han Fei frowned, wondering if he should walk into the mist and have a look, 2 huge heads suddenly stuck out of the mist. Suddenly, 2 giant heads popped out of the fog. Who else could it be but the 9-headed snake grass? And these 2 heads had been necrotic. One of them was almost rotten, and there was no longer any green color. The other one was dark green, with patches of black and green. It was no longer as majestic as the 9-headed snake grass. Han Fei's heart sank. The 9-headed snake grass that guarded the Divine Child Peak had become like this? With a thought, Han Fei threw out 10,000 caddies of spiritual spring and 100 energy fruits. Take them and recover. Top. Chapter 1231. Faced with the 9-headed snake grass that was about to rot, it didn't care where this spiritual energy came from. Who gave it to it? Anyway, as long as Han Fei gave it to it, it had to accept it no matter what. The huge tongue sucked, and the spiritual spring and the energy fruit were sucked away. Then, the 2 snakeheads were hidden in the mist again. Han Fei pondered for a moment. There were not many people who knew about the Divine Child Peak, or had touched it. Besides, since he was here, the fairy was inside. He couldn't meet her in the appearance of the Fish Dragon King. Han Fei stood in midair, and his body began to twist and deform. At the moment when Han Fei transformed, he also saw a snake head sticking out of the mist again. It seemed to be curious about what Han Fei was doing. However, when Han Fei slowly turned into a human being, the snakehead couldn't help but lean its head closer. Han Fei said grumpily. I'm Wang Han. Open a way for me to go in. Aren't you able to transmit or speak human language? Say something. The nine-headed snake grass could speak human language, but its voice was like thunder. Seeing that it was exposed, the nine-headed snake grass asked, Who are you? I've never heard of the name Wang Han. Han Fei grinned. Have you heard of the name Shimen Linglan? As he spoke, Han Fei hummed. I'm speaking Jotun now. You should know that, right? Then, with a buzz, Han Fei turned into a big ape and hummed. Have you seen the Beast King? Hum. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei turned into the human form of the heavenly god again. Unfortunately, the heavenly god had never shown his true form. Therefore, Han Fei didn't know what the heavenly god's true form was. He could only turn into the cold heavenly god. The snakehead of the nine-headed snake grass was still swaying. I've never seen the Beast King or the heavenly god. That was the era of kings. I wasn't even born yet. Han Fei hesitated for a long time. For some reason, he suddenly remembered what Shu Xiaoman said. Will you become a woman? F***CK. Don't tell me that the Life Queen already knew about this relationship. Han Fei was horrified. No way. Even he felt that what he had experienced was very bizarre. Until now, no one had said anything about it. The Life Queen couldn't be this amazing, could she? You even know this? However, facing the Hydra grass whose brain might be broken, Han Fei gritted his teeth and said, Although you don't have eyes, you'd better watch what's going to happen next. Han Fei's body began to change. He began to shrink, his hair grew longer, and his cheeks contracted. In the blink of an eye, a beautiful woman appeared in midair. Who else could it be but the water immortal? Of course, Han Fei only changed his figure and face, but nothing more. The nine-headed snake grass was dumbfounded. All of a sudden, the 9 rotten snake heads all ran out. It was as if one of the heads could not be seen clearly. Han Fei said gloomily, Have you seen enough? Once you're done, clear the way for me. As he spoke, Han Fei raised his hand, and 100,000 caddies of spiritual spring floated in the air. Do you think I'm stupid? If the fairy had nothing to do with me, why would I give her resources? Besides, the Divine Sun is not here. Do you really think the Divine Sun peak can stop me? With that, Han Fei's figure continued to change. It was too shameful to dress as a woman, so it was better to turn into a man, even if this man had a strange appearance. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei grew horns on his head and turned into the appearance of the Divine Sun. This time, the nine-headed snake grass didn't react at all. Han Fei was speechless. This is the Divine Sun. You live on the Divine Sun peak. Have you never seen the Divine Sun? The nine-headed snake grass trembled slightly and responded a little slowly. Who are you? Han Fei was speechless. I told you that I am the fairy's disciple. I can't tell you the details. Clear the way for me first. If you don't, how long can this world last? The fairy is very short of energy and spiritual energy now, isn't she? The nine-headed snake grass seemed a little hesitant. However, Han Fei had clearly changed into the appearance of the fairy. It couldn't be fake, right? Ever since he had been guarding the Godchild Peak, there had only been one person who had come to the Godchild Peak, and that person would never harm the fairy in any case. The rotten head of the nine-headed snake grass sorted out its thoughts and stretched out a head. Come into my mouth. I will take you into the Divine Sun Peak. Han Fei put away the spiritual spring and stepped over without hesitation. When standing in the head of the nine-headed snake grass, Han Fei found that the plant was emitting a stench, which was the smell of decaying plants. Even the Divine Child Peak was in such a poor state. Han Fei's heart sank. I have to save the fairy and the water fairy. When I left, the fairy and the water fairy turned into a flower bud. Now, how many tens of thousands of years had passed? What had become of the fairy and the water fairy? The periphery of the Divine Sun Peak was not open to the public. The mist had the ability to make people lose their way. Where exactly was the mist? No one knew. There seemed to be an infinite space in the mist. Anyway, Han Fei had only been to the Divine Sun Peak once. The Divine Sun must have deliberately opened a hole for him to go in. This was actually the second time for Han Fei. He passed through the layers of mist and went inside. When a burst of gray mist drifted past, the scene in front of Han Fei changed. It was still the withered tree. The red ribbon-like leaves had withered and turned into a bare tree without leaves. This weird tree seemed to have withered. Was it still alive? But at least there were no divine sons here. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. In the head of the nine-headed snake grass, Han Fei saw a lotus flower in front of the tree. It was a 9-leaf lotus flower, but at this moment there was only one lotus seed and one lotus petal left. With a swish, Han Fei's body flashed, and he appeared on the divine sun peak. The nine-headed snake grass shook, fearing that Han Fei would hurt the fairy and the water fairy. However, Han Fei saw at a glance that this lotus seed was protected by an array. Even if there was only one lotus petal left, it couldn't be moved by ordinary people. However, for Han Fei, who could steal vitality and was good at arrays, it didn't seem to be very difficult. He felt that if it were him, he could probably break it with some time. Of course, Han Fei would never do that. On the lotus seat, the beautiful figure of the water fairy was lying quietly. Her face didn't change at all. It seemed that she had just fallen into a deep sleep. Han Fei turned his head excitedly and looked at the nine-headed snake grass. How can I give spiritual energy, and vitality to the fairy? The nine-headed snake grass said, just inject it directly into the lotus seat. The fairy will instinctively take it. Han Fei couldn't help but look at the nine-headed snake grass. Did you give all the spiritual energy I just gave you to the fairy? The nine-headed snake grass nodded slightly. Of course, it had to give such a precious thing. In the end, when it couldn't hold on anymore, all the living creatures in this world would dedicate their vitality to the fairy. Han Fei immediately raised his hand and injected 500,000 caddies of spiritual spring, which made the nine-headed snake grass shrink back in shock. This was probably the most extravagant injection of spiritual energy he had ever seen in his life. In fact, this was not a lot of spiritual energy. 500,000 spiritual spring was just 500 million points of spiritual energy. After deducing all kinds of techniques, Han Fei had about 500 million points of spiritual energy left. In addition to the 10,000 caddies that he just gave to the nine-headed snake grass, plus the ones he robbed and the fish dragon king, Han Fei had about 300 million points of spiritual energy left. Han Fei was a little regretful. If I had known this, I wouldn't have bombed the iceberg city. Otherwise, I would have at least 5 billion points of spiritual energy left to give to the water fairy. The spiritual energy was crazily drawn into the lotus seat like a roaring river. Han Fei ignored it and cast a holy light technique on the nine-headed snake grass. The nine-headed snake grass's body shook and vitality was recovering. A large number of decayed and broken meridians were withering and trying to regrow. The nine-headed snake grass hurriedly said, "Give it to the fairy. Don't waste it." Han Fei shouted in a low voice, "It's not a big deal. I don't have enough spiritual energy here. I have to go hunt some sea demons later." It was like a river if measured by the naked eye. At this moment, it was poured into the divine child peak, causing the spiritual energy here to soar into the sky and be visible in all directions. But Han Fei didn't care. The people outside were all useless. If he fought normally, he could fight 1,000 people alone. At this moment, the old turtle said, "You can't understand the energy and spiritual energy that a king needs to consume. You have too few resources. If you had 10 times more, you might be able to see it. Even if you can't revive her, it's not a problem to keep this space for 100 years. Clatter. Han Fei waved his hand again and threw out the remaining 300 million points of spiritual energy. The nine-headed snake grass trembled again. How much spiritual energy does this guy have? Not only that, Han Fei gritted his teeth and threw out more than 2,000 spiritual fruits, which all turned into energy and spiritual energy and were absorbed into the lotus seat, causing the clouds on the divine child peak to change color and spiritual energy to soar into the sky. In the distance, many people raised their heads and looked in the direction of the divine child peak. A sky monster exclaimed, "There seems to be a rare treasure over there." A bug buzzed, "Go over there." There must be the bodies of the ancestors of the Bug Clan there. Shu Man and the others were searching for the dead creatures and picking up treasures. How could they not be shocked when they saw this strange light in the distance? Someone shouted, "Let's go." The blood demons were all surprised, too. Was it possible that somebody had dug out something? A blood demon said, "Let's go. Hurry up." A blood demon said, "Ryun, what are you thinking? There must be a rare treasure over there." Yang Ryun said casually, "If we can see it, then everyone can see it. Do you think it's a good thing?" Chapter 1232. The main purpose of the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm was not to explore. It was not to deliberately create a huge amount of treasures. The kings all knew that this was a king's world, and there must be great opportunities here. Whether it was human beings or sea demons, the reason why they kept sending people here was to ensure that these treasures couldn't be monopolized by either side. Otherwise, one expert after another would inevitably be created, which was what no one wanted to see. On the other hand, although there was a high chance of dying in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, since it was the place where the king slept, it meant that there was a chance to become a king inside. At least, everyone who knew the inside story thought that there was a chance here. What if they got some kind of inheritance? Even if there was no inheritance, would there be other great opportunities? For the sea demons, if the sleeping king in this space belonged to the 10,000 clans, they would send more people here. Their purpose was also very simple, which was to hollow and destroy this space as much as possible. At this moment, Han Fei was frowning, because he no longer had any resources on him. He only kept 100 spirit fruits for himself in case he needed them in battle. Facing the nine-headed snake grass, Han Fei cast the Holy Light technique again and then left it alone. Anyway, after so many years, he was not in a hurry to recover. Although the water fairy showed no signs of recovering, the massive amount of spiritual energy and energy being absorbed was not completely useless. First of all, Han Fei noticed that there was a green light flowing around the lotus under the water fairy. The abundant supply of spiritual energy and energy was automatically used to stabilize the barriers around the lotus. Then, Han Fei saw that the only remaining lotus petal straightened a little. If it was a little listless before, it looked particularly energetic at this moment. In the end, the water fairy was also covered in a dense aura. The old tortoise said, "That person left behind a lot of backup plans." After the Lotus Throne dealt with it, although the resources you threw out today couldn't awaken her complete consciousness, they did awaken a trace of her self-awareness, which is her self-defense awareness. Han Fei glanced at Forge the Universe, only to find that there was nothing left but a pile of scrap metal. Those things were useless in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. What Han Fei desperately needed now was vitality like the spring of life. Unfortunately, during the tribulation, the immeasurable fruit was gone. Now, it should have become a part of his meridians. Otherwise, such a supreme-grade spiritual fruit would be extremely beneficial to the water deity. Now, there was only one way left, the apocalyptic divine technique. The reason why he hadn't thought of using the apocalyptic divine art before was that he would have to pay a heavy price to use it once. One of the major effects of the Apocalypse Divine Arts was the overdraft of one's life force. The caster could use their life as the price to activate the heavenly awakening divine power to recover from their injuries. At this moment, Han Fei thought to himself, "I have a lifespan of more than 2,000 years. It shouldn't be a problem for me to use a little bit of my lifespan to activate the apocalyptic divine technique, right? After all, life force could also be seized. At that time, he could just snatch it back." Han Fei pondered for a moment. It was just one treatment. In Forge the Universe, there were 100 spiritual fruits and some spirit awakening fluid. Although they didn't seem to be of much use to vitality, they were still a manifestation of Tao. It shouldn't be a problem for him to use the heaven awakening divine art once, right? Hiss. Han Fei took a breath and said to the water deity, "If I can't do it this time, wait for me. I'll find a way to get out and ask the Life Queen for some spring of life." With that, Han Fei spread out his hands, and golden light enveloped him in the blink of an eye. The apocalyptic divine art, known as the immortal divine art, could connect with the origin of the void at the cost of one's life. When he activated the apocalyptic divine art, Han Fei finally knew what it meant to pay with one's life. He felt that his vitality was no longer fresh, and his vitality was rapidly weakening. The old turtle exclaimed, "Little B***, starred, what are you doing? Your vitality is rapidly fading." Hiss, is this apocalyptic? Apocalyptic divine art? Han Fei only felt that his vitality was being sucked away, and he had no time to talk to the old turtle. A golden pillar of milky white light fell directly from the sky. The golden pillar of light enveloped the water deity again. Han Fei felt the feeling of vitality fading again. The old turtle roared, "Where did you learn the apocalyptic divine art? Although this art is good, you haven't entered the Tao yet, and your vitality is at least several times more consumed than those who have." Han Fei sensed for a moment and gritted his teeth. "How do I know how much vitality I've consumed?" The old turtle sneered. "You haven't comprehended the Tao yet, so you can't feel it directly. You can calculate it according to the strength of the vitality in your body at this moment. 10% less means 200 years. You won't recover until you stop using the apocalyptic divine art." Han Fei's expression changed. While talking to the old turtle, his vitality had been reduced by more than 10%. In other words, his 200 years of lifespan had been gone. 10 seconds later, Han Fei felt that the strength of his vitality had been reduced by 30%. And the reason why he was still able to persevere was because he could hear the water fairies breathing. Han Fei's eyes lit up. "It's working," the old turtle said. Your lifespan is comparable to that of a half-venerable. 30% of your vitality can actually revive her vitality. But that's enough. Stop it now. It's already very commendable that you can revive her vitality, not to mention the apocalyptic divine art. However, your level is too low, and you haven't entered the Tao yet. It's still not enough to wake her up." Han Fei curled his lips. "Don't panic. I can also absorb other people's vitality. There are thousands of sea demons outside. I can replenish them in less than half a day." The old turtle was speechless. "Then you have to stop it quickly. This is no longer a combat skill, but a Tao. The deeper you enter the Tao, the lower the consumption. You spent 1,000 years of your lifespan to enter this Tao. The same apocalyptic divine art consumes only half of what it is now." Han Fei asked, "How long will it take to enter the Tao?" Seeing that the water deity was breathing lightly and the lotus petals began to sway, Han Fei stopped using the apocalyptic divine art. This was a kind of continuous life-saving technique. The moment Han Fei stopped, the feeling of vitality fading also disappeared. Han Fei staggered slightly and felt a little dizzy. Now his body was weak, and the power contained in his vitality had been reduced by nearly half, which meant that this apocalyptic divine art cost him nearly 1,000 years of his lifespan. "Are you okay?" The nine-headed snake grass completely trusted Han Fei now. Just now, that terrifying life force made him believe that if it fell on his body, he would only need 5 breaths' time to recover to his peak state and recreate the glory of his peak. Although such a powerful vitality still couldn't wake up the water deity. However, the difference between now and just now on the lotus seat was huge. At this moment, the lotus seat was enshrouded in mist and glowed brilliantly. Han Fei grinned. "I'm fine. Don't panic." Han Fei really didn't panic at all. With a flip of his hand, the last hundreds of spiritual fruits on his body floated up and exploded. Activating the swallowing technique, Han Fei swallowed these spiritual fruits in one breath. Of course, it didn't help his vitality recover, but it could quickly slow down his weakened state. Han Fei sat cross-legged, looked at the colorful divine child peak, and said to the nine-headed snake grass, "Later, if someone comes from outside, don't attack. Just tie them up and wait for me to recover." Then Han Fei sat cross-legged and began to recover. Outside, clang! The sound of a bell rang in the sky, and dense green mist floated in the sky. Just when Han Fei was resting, Countless demonic plants on thousands of mountains were shocked almost at the same time. Fairy, are you recovering? At that moment, all sorts of demon plants sprang up from the belly of the mountains and faced the sky. The sea demons, the blood demon, and the Shuamu heaven quickly gathered and were gathering. Outside the Divine Child Peak, the Sky Clan of the Shuamu heaven arrived first, and a big bird tried to rush into the Divine Child Peak. However, as soon as it flew out the way it came, because the space here was distorted and it was impossible to pass through in a normal way. After a while, people from 3 parties arrived one after another. The people of the Shuamu heaven, the sea demons, and the blood demon had arrived. Outside the Divine Child Peak, there were more than 3,000 people. Of course, some people also realized that there must be something unusual outside the Divine Child Peak. While everyone was going to the Divine Child Peak, they went to look for treasures, including Yang Ruiyun. At this moment, the 3 parties were attacking each other. Yu Hong glanced at Shu Xiaoman. He still remembered the scene where Shu Xiaoman killed dozens of people in a row. Although that woman's means were weird and he couldn't get close to her, he immediately shouted, "Female demons of the Blood Sea Divine Wood. We're both members of the Sea Clan. Let's work together to kill the humans first. How about that?" However, none of the women leading the blood demon responded. Only one woman sneered. "Don't talk nonsense. We're just here to look for opportunities. The White Shell Royal City and the Shuamu Heaven can fight as you like. It's none of our business." "Above Buzz, let's go." A sea demon sneered. "The treasures here belong to those who are fated to get them. Let's go in together, regardless of life or death." "How about it?" Some humans said to each other via voice transmission. "I agree. Even if we die, we'll still make a profit. They have more people than we do." A big bird responded, "It's feasible. I went in just now and didn't encounter any danger, but it was easy to get lost and come out." A little trance said, "I'll try to climb up from the bottom of the sea in a mountain wall." A blood demon said to each other via voice transmission, "Let's go first and see what's going on. The more people there are, the better it will be for us." At the top, Chapter 1233. After using the Heaven Awakening Divine Technique once, Han Fei found that this technique had extremely high requirements to use. If he used it in his current state, the moment he activated it, he could clearly feel his vitality fading away. However, as the old turtle said, it would be much easier for a Tao-reaching cultivator to use this technique. Therefore, the path he took seemed to be very important. Was it difficult to become a spirit gatherer? Han Fei didn't think so. At least, since he began to learn the spirit concentration art, he had always felt that it was quite easy for him to use the spirit concentration art. However, here came the problem. The old turtle said that a path could only accommodate one person, and the rest were all enemies. And the path of the 5 major professions had existed a long time ago, and had almost spread throughout human society. Were the 5 major professions strong? Of course they were. For example, his arrays, refiners, and spiritual energy control. Which of them didn't need the support of a spirit gatherer? But behind these professions, were there reapers? Thinking about it, Han Fei felt creeped out. At this moment, the 9-headed snake grass said, "There are a lot of people." As soon as Han Fei recovered, he saw the 9 heads of the 9-headed snake grass waiting for him. Because he had just used the Holy Light technique twice, the 9-headed snake grass now had 3 usable heads. Of course, it was obviously not enough to recover all of them. But at this moment, Han Fei had basically used up everything he could use. Even half of his lifespan had been used up. There was really nothing left. Hearing that the 9-headed snake grass said there were a lot of people, Han Fei's eyes immediately lit up. "Okay." Han Fei suddenly stood up and said, "Since you are guarding here, you should be very familiar with the spatial array of the Divine Child Peak. How can I perceive the outside world on the Divine Child Peak? Or, how can I view this array?" The 9-headed snake grass stretched its huge head over and said, "Just stand on my body." Han Fei's eyes lit up, and he stepped on the 9-headed snake grass's head. Then, his divine senses swept out and covered more than 500 kilometers around. He didn't need to care about the periphery anymore. As soon as his perception swept out, he found that a total of nearly 1,000 people were charging at the array. They had entered the Divine Child Peak and were trying their best to find a way through the mist. The nine-headed snake grass said, "I can activate the restrictions of the Godchild Peak and activate the power of thunder and wind." Han Fei quickly said, "Don't. These are all vitality. Don't waste them." Han Fei rolled his eyes and took out his dragon burial rod. He hadn't fished for a long time. At this time, in the outside world, the wind and rain were like the sea. Were half-mermaids not fish? Aren't blood demons fish? Swish, swish, swish. Han Fei's void line stretched out and extended into the mist. Puff, puff, puff. In the heavy mist, Han Fei's vision was extremely clear because of the hydra grass. The void line pinched the target accurately. Sensing the danger, a half-mermaid immediately protected his soul with a jellyfish spiritual beast around him. However, just when this person was about to escape in fear, with a swish, a fishing line pierced through the void, and the 1,000 twining silk was instantly activated. With a swish, this person was tied up. Then, the void lines along the fishing hook hung on his body and directly stole his vitality. Originally, the fishing rod Han Fei used was a mid-quality divine weapon, so ordinary peak-level sea spirits couldn't break free easily. With his hook, Han Fei directly controlled 11 people at once. 2 of them, because they had some special abilities, could actually block the void lines. And Han Fei pointed his finger, and the infinity water turned into a long dragon of 10,000 knives and rushed out in an instant. Han Fei felt his body shaking slightly, and he immediately realized that he had overdrawn too much. However, fortunately, at this moment, a little vitality was replenished. The vitality of 11 people was being instilled into his body. Even if the vitality stolen by each person was very little, it was still an extremely abundant amount of vitality. The old turtle said, "What a waste, what a waste. You brat, you have a precious skill, but you don't concentrate on cultivation. These peak-level sea spirits have at most 1,000 years of vitality, and the least is more than 800 years of vitality. Although they don't have your physique aptitude, the vitality you have converted is too little. 1,000 years of lifespan has been forcibly converted into 1 or 2 years of vitality. It's simply too wasteful." Han Fei rolled his eyes and said, "What's wrong with this? Why can't I feel it?" The old turtle snorted and said, "When you enter the Tao, you can understand your own Tao, know life and death, and obtain the Tao. By then, you will naturally have a better understanding of lifespan and vitality." Han Fei curled his lips and said, It's still too early. What's wrong with 1 or 2 years? I can absorb 1,000 or 800 of them. Can't it replenish my vitality?" The old turtle disdainfully said, "If you were more proficient in this skill, you wouldn't have caused such a huge waste. Why don't I convert a little for you? Don't even think about it." Han Fei had long guessed the old turtle's idea. It was nothing more than to devour vitality. At this moment, thousands of sea demons were here, and they were all edible. However, he couldn't eat any of them. Was he greedy? Han Fei said, "You kill Yuandao and the turtle outside first. Isn't a body better than this little bit of life force? These are the vitality I used to save my life." The old turtle said, "Not necessarily enough." Han Fei curled his lips and smiled. "Whether it's enough or not, I'll suck these people dry first. By the way, old Yuan, since you know the Heaven Awakening Divine Technique, should I continue to use the Heaven Awakening Divine Technique later, or should I directly swallow these people?" The old turtle said leisurely, "Then you'd better use the Heaven Awakening Divine Technique. The Heaven Awakening Divine Technique helps her wake up and directly feeds her vitality. The quality of the vitality of ordinary peak-level sea spirits is far inferior to the Heaven Awakening Divine Technique." Hearing this, Han Fei immediately understood. He pulled all 11 of them over to his side. Han Fei directly threw the person who was not controlled by the void lines into the mouth of the 9-headed snake grass. Han Fei said, "This is for you. You eat first and then help me." Han Fei only needed to control the fishing rod with one hand. The void lines didn't need hands, so at this moment, he still had time to grab those people's sea-swallowing seashells. Because the Thousand Mountain ancient realm itself lacked spiritual energy and energy. Therefore, those who came in would generally bring a lot of spiritual spring and spiritual fruits to assist in battle. Just over 10 people, Han Fei got more than 5,000 caddies of spiritual spring. Although it was less than 10,000 caddies, there were still thousands of people in this fog. Han Fei glanced at Shu Xiaoman. What's wrong with this girl? How could she run into the fog? It must be noted that the big array outside the Divine Child Peak hadn't been opened. Otherwise, there would be flashes of lightning and cracks in the void everywhere, and they wouldn't be able to resist it at all. Han Fei thought for a moment. Shu Xiaoman must have come with a task, right? I wonder if she has a lot of resources on her? Han Fei thought of something and said to her via voice transmission, Shu Xiaoman, it's Han Fei. Do you have the water of life with you? Based on the cooperation between him and Shu Xiaoman at the beginning, the Life Queen and the others were already sure that he was among the sea demons. Therefore, the people he knew showed up one after another. Why did this happen? In addition to protecting the Xuanmu heaven, there should be something else. As soon as Shu Xiaoman rushed into the fog, she was stunned. There was nothing around her. There was no way back, no way forward. After flying for a long time, she didn't know where she had flown to. She didn't see anything, nor did she touch anything. Suddenly, Han Fei's voice sounded beside Shu Xiaoman, which cheered her up. Han Fei, where are you? Han Fei said, Don't worry about where I am. Did the Life Queen or Jing ask you to send me a message? Shu Xiaoman was stunned for a moment. Yes, the Jing messenger asked us to bring you 30 drops of the water of life. The Jing messenger said that no more can be given. You have to figure out a way for the rest. Han Fei took a breath. Give it to me quickly. Why didn't you give it to me when I first came in? Shu Xiaoman said, the Jing messenger said that if you didn't ask, she wouldn't give it to you. Where are you? Han Fei said, Snake grass, send me there. Shu Xiaoman was still looking around vigilantly. All of a sudden, he saw an incomparably large black shadow stretching over. Shu Xiaoman's whole body tensed up. What the hell is this? Just when Shu Xiaoman was about to freeze, she saw a huge snake head. No, it was just a weird demonic plant that looked like a snake head appearing in front of her. And standing on the demonic plant, who else could it be but Han Fei? Gulp. Shu Xiaoman immediately swallowed. What did Han Fei do this time? Why did he come here? It was very good to have such a big demon plant. Han Fei said, Give me the water of life. Also, go out and trick the sea demons of the Bai Bei Royal City and the blood demons of the Blood Sea Divine would come in. Han Fei quickly explained the plan to young man Shu. Shu Xiaoman quickly took out her sea-swallowing seashell and threw it to Han Fei. It's all in there. In case I die and get lost, I always have a lot of people around me. Han Fei took the sea-swallowing seashell and didn't even look at it. He looked at Shu Xiaoman and said, Remember, you must act realistically. As long as they can be tricked into coming in, none of those guys can escape. Han Fei's words shocked Shu Xiaoman. It must be noted that only a part of the people had come in. There were more than 1,000 people from the two clans outside. Han Fei, however, showed a hint of ruthlessness. If it was so easy to enter the Divine Child Peak, he wouldn't have given the 9-headed snake grass a toy just now. As long as the 9-headed snake grass was willing to pay the price, none of the hundreds of people in the mist could escape. They would be killed in an instant. Han Fei stamped his feet and said, Snake grass, cooperate with me and act. First update, asking for votes. End of this chapter.